And I went into places I haven't been in 399 days with a mask,
It felt so good, didn't it?
Lydia, did you get my text?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why we need 55 minutes for that. That seems a little.
Great. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, April 13th meeting of the Carrboro Town Council. We're continuing to celebrate Poetry Month. And this month we have several guest poets from our Poets Circle. And I think that tonight we're supposed to have Abigail Browning with us. Kathy, is that right?
That's right. And may I go ahead and do the roll just to get everything?
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and do it first. Sorry. Yep.
It's okay. Yep. I may not have had it listed on the agenda because I have to add that manually.
You did.
Okay. And that just gets it taken care of for any action. Okay. Mayor Lydia Lavelle.
Present.
Councilmember and Mayor Pro Tem Barbara Foushee.
Present.
Councilmember Jacqueline Gist.
Present.
Councilmember Randy Haven O'Donnell.
Present.
Councilmember Susan Romaine.
Present.
Councilmember Damon Siles.
Present.
And Councilmember Sammy Slade. Sammy? Okay, he's here. I see him. All right.
Sammy's here. He was just muted when he said that. So
yeah, so I'll go ahead and let everyone know if you are going to be brought over for any portion of tonight's meeting. I will promote you over from attendee to panelist mode. Your screen will drop. It will say joining as panelists. Don't touch anything. It's normal for you not to be able to see anything during that transition. So Abigail, I will bring you over now.
hello, Abigail.
Thank you for having us. The Carrboro Poets Council come in for Poetry Month and read some poems.
No, we're really happy to have you. It occurred to me, it's interesting. Poetry Month is a month off for our poet laureate, so it's nice to have all these poets. So
yeah, he's busy with other stuff. So I'm really excited because I'm going to read a community written poem written during the 2020 West End Poetry Festival. So last year we had to go all online. And what that meant is that we took our theme, a poetry for a change, and we asked participants, anyone who wanted to write a couple of lines. And it either had to use the word change or relate to North Carolina in some way, because a lot of our participants come from outside of Carrboro to see Carrboro poetry. We're going to probably redo that this year with a new theme to be determined. But I wanted to read to you the poem, the community poem, which is on the website, westendpoetryfestival.org, called Home Song. And we had a guest editor put the lines together, Ellie Bookman. But the participants, we had about 20. So Akalinde Balikis, Jay Bryan, Peter Burian, Gail Chesson, Ralph Earl, Joshua Factor, John Goody, Jackie Helvey, Mara High, John Hoppenthaler, Kai Love, Linda Myers, Alice Osborne, Gary Phillips, Susan Spalt, Dee Stribling, and Doug Stuver were all authors on this poem. So the poem is called Home Song. I climbed the spires and ladders of Grandfather Mountain's truth with my family this fall Saturday. Though not where the root is, but the graft is taken. Home is Durham, The fruits are endless. Each scrap of land here, each dwelling has its story and its future. Bring me the change from color to color, from dust to the dance in the rain. Change comes like sea spray, tireless as red-eyed vireos. Preacher birds soothe splintered waves. The changes for freed Black man have been but a trickle. It is time for the rivers to flow. We age, our wrinkles deepen, stone-throwed ripples in the Yadkin River. We ride the wind of change, holding on, laughing and crying, until we are flung into new selves. Our lives are forever metamorphosis. Change is the only constant. As Carrboro's woods and creeks, its roads and roofs can tell you. Caswell County cornstalks call in wind to prime tobacco ghosts. The opposite of change is stagnation, stalling. Revisionist history no more. Please tell the truth about what happened at the African shores. Change removes all heart yet inspires heights. Sing to Carrboro, no one silent, no one unheard. The beauty of nature is perpetually changing, but the beauty of the universe is eternal. Poetry unites our hearts and our heads as we work for change. Days dawn bright with hope. Open your eyes and we will see it together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that poem with us.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening, Abigail. It's great to see you again. All right, let's see here. Kathy, I think next we move on to charges for recently appointed advisory board members.
If you are in attendee mode tonight to receive your charge as an advisory board member that was recently appointed, please raise your Zoom hand and I will bring you all over. We have, and I will read your names now. So the Greenways Commission, we have Meredith Moravati, Satya Capelli, Maheen Manley. For the Planning Board, we have Khadija Amina and James Baker. Affordable Housing Advisory Commission, we have Benjamin Gear and Heather Nash. And on the Transportation Advisory Board, Lenore, is it Lenora or Lenore? Councilmember Romaine, do you feel like you know her? I don't want to mess up her name, but Lenore Jones.
I think it's Lenore, but I'm not 100%.
Okay. And Kumi Davis. On the Arts Committee, we have Seamus Bestwick and Bronwyn Merritt. And if I messed up anyone's name, I apologize. I am from the mountains, so it takes me a little bit longer. So raise your hand and I'll bring you over.
Kathy, it's Lenore.
Lenore, thank you so much. Okay. And so the way this will work, thank you all for being here. I miss being able to meet you all in person, and thank you so much for volunteering your precious time to the town of Carrboro. We really appreciate that. And normally I would read you the charge and then you would get to shake hands and meet your council members, but give them all a nice nod, and I know they're super appreciative of you being here as well. So I will start with the Greenways Commission, and if you're here for that, after I read it, just simply say I do. You can turn your mic on at that time. So this is the charge of the Greenways Commission. As a member of the Greenways Commission, I recognize and honor that in the town of Carrboro, greenways are unbroken chains of preserved open space surrounding stream and wildlife corridors, headwaters, water recharge areas, and significant ecosystems that also provide bicycle and pedestrian connections between neighborhoods and for the community. As such, I will recommend to the council, policies, programs, and actions that may assist the town in safeguarding the water quality, environment, and livability of the community by establishing greenways. And I will also encourage effective stewardship and management of such greenways and promote educational, recreational, and public health usage consistent with the protection of this resource. Having heard the duties, I agree to perform the aforementioned duties of the Greenways Commission, of which I'm about to enter, according to the best skill and ability. So you can unmute.
I will.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the Planning Board. As a Planning Board member, I will make studies and recommend to the Carrboro Town Council plans, goals, and objectives relating to the growth, development, and redevelopment of the town and the surrounding extraterritorial planning area. Develop and recommend to the Carrboro Town Council policies, ordinances, administrative procedures, and other means for carrying out plans in a coordinated and efficient manner. Make recommendations to the Carrboro Town Council concerning proposed conditional use permits and proposed zoning map changes as provided by sections 1557 and 15322 of the Carrboro Land Use Ordinance, and perform any other duties as assigned by the Town Council. Having heard the duties of a Planning Board member of the Town of Carrboro, I agree to perform the aforementioned duties of a Planning Board member of which I am about to enter according to my best skill and ability. All right, you can unmute and say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the Affordable Housing Advisory Commission. Let's skip to another one because I don't have that charge open, so I'm sorry. Next, let's do the Transportation Advisory Board. As a Transportation Advisory Board member, I will assist in the execution of studies, advise, and make recommendations to the Carrboro Town Council concerning all matters relating to the transportation within the town of Carrboro and the surrounding area, including but not limited to the need for the construction, operation, relocation, or improvement of streets, sidewalks, and bikeways, as well as the establishment and improvement of alternative methods of mass transportation. I will report to the Carrboro Town Council as requested by the council and undertake such studies or perform such duties as the council may request from time to time. And I will also take any other action authorized by the Carrboro Town Council. Being aware of the duties as a member of the Carrboro Transportation Advisory Board, I agree to faithfully perform the aforementioned duties to the best of my skill and ability. And you can unmute and say I do.
I do.
Thank you. And let me open this next charge. This next charge is for the Affordable Housing Advisory Commission. As an Affordable Housing Advisory Commission member, I will review and make recommendations to the Carrboro Town Council concerning new or revised policies regarding the operation of the town's Affordable Housing Fund, the Land Use Ordinance provisions related to the town's affordable housing goals and strategies, and affordable housing funding applications. I will carry out specific responsibilities that may be required in accordance with the Affordable Housing Fund policies or the town's Land Use Ordinance. I will annually review the town's affordable housing goals and data and other progress indicators to make recommendations to prioritize or adjust activities based on such review. I will offer recommendations to the Carrboro Town Council for new or specific actions the town may pursue to increase the availability of diverse, affordable housing in Carrboro, particularly as new opportunities arise or are brought to the Commission's attention by staff. I will review and approve annual and other staff reports to the Carrboro Town Council. As needed or as requested by town staff, I will help organize subcommittees focusing on specific topics or issues to help advance specific work, and I will identify and research affordable housing trends and issues. Having heard the duties of an Affordable Housing Advisory Commission member of the town of Carrboro, I agree to perform the aforementioned duties which I'm about to enter, according to my best skill and ability. And you can.
I will.
I will.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the Arts Committee.
I don't think you have anybody here for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So,
think maybe everyone who's with us here.
everyone,
Yeah, you got
Seamus
everybody.
Bestwick, Bronwyn Merritt, or Fabian Stupinski, or Satoria Shepperson. Can't see the screen, so looks like that's everyone. Let me check the attendees really quickly.
That they would all be not here from the arts.
All not here from the arts, and we won't, and the Economic Sustainability Commission. So I will transfer you back over to attend.
Hey, all right, hang
Thank
on,
you all for joining us.
Hang on just
Okay.
a second, Kathy. Before you
Yep.
transfer them, I just wanted to say, Ben, Meredith, Lenore, Heather, Khadija, thank you so much again for volunteering to be on one of our advisory boards. We really appreciate it. And like Kathy said, if we were all in person, we'd be shaking your hands and warmly greeting you and welcoming you. So I can't wait until we can see you in person. But again, thank you very much from our council. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. It looks like it's just back to us again. So, or as Nick would say, just us chickens. So, all right, Kathy, go ahead. And our next item is announcement of upcoming meetings.
Hey. My screen was overloaded. I had a few Word documents open there. Okay, between now and our next meeting, the Arts Committee will meet April 14th at 6 p.m. The Economic Sustainability Commission will meet April 14th at 7:30. And then you all will meet here again April 20th at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Tomorrow morning, Damon and I have an MPO meeting, and then Thursday morning, I think I have a chamber board meeting. I'm gonna double check that date, but I'm pretty sure I do. I saw some other hands up. Let's see, Susan and then Sammy.
Yes, the Intergovernmental Parks Works Group is meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, April 14th from 5:30 to 7. And we're going to talk about the really important role that parks played for all of us during the pandemic, and then look for ways that we can increase access to parks coming out of the pandemic.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. Sammy.
Thursday at 3 p.m., the Climate Council meets. And then on Tuesday, the Food Council Executive Committee meets also.
Great. Thanks, Sammy. Randy, do you want to mention the event on Earth Day? Because it's just next week, so.
Oh my goodness, yes. Thursday, April 22nd from 5 to 7 at Town Commons, Carrboro, Town of Carrboro, present day on Main, so Soteria and Sophie, and Climate Reality Orange County are co-sponsoring a food footprint food sale. It's in alignment with the Town of Carrboro Community Climate Action Plan on food measures. And the highlight of the event is plant-based, vegetarian and vegan foods. So we have quite a number of food vendors participating. In Carrboro alone, we have Carrboritos, Spotted Dog, Bimola's, but the complete list is going to come out later. Please look for the information on the Town of Carrboro website, and several other folks are sharing it through their social media. So, pass the word. Again, 5 to 7, Town Commons. It'll be the back part of Town Commons, the parking lot adjacent Bim Street, and the perpendicular to it, the pavilion facing Town Hall.
Great.
Y'all come
Okay.
out.
All right. Thanks, Randy. Well, we can mention it again next Tuesday as well. So, all right, Kathy. I don't think we have any requests for visitors and speakers from the floor. Is that correct?
That's right. If I missed anyone and you are here to speak from the floor, you can raise your hand, but I didn't receive any requests.
Okay. All right. Very good. So then, Ms. Manager, Ms. Acting Manager again, Trish, thank you again for your service. The consent agenda.
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone. You have 3 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first is approval of the minutes from the March 31st, 2021 meeting with edits as offered by Mayor Lavelle and Councilmember Romaine. Item 2 is approval of a one-time pandemic response payment to essential Town of Carrboro employees. Item 3 is approval of compliance documents required by the North Carolina Department of Commerce as part of Carrboro's Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus CDBG-CV Award.
I'll move the items.
Okay, hang on just a sec, Randy. If someone would move 1 and 2, I think we need to pull 3 for a minute to add the language I asked about.
I'll
Could I
move
just,
1 and 2.
ask a question about number 2?
I was going to poll.
Second
All right.
on one.
All right, everyone's talking at once.
With
All right, let's, Sammy, what's your question about 2 before we just do a motion on 1?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a sense from staff. It's estimated that we'll get $6.2 million from the Recovery Act. And at some point over email, a sense, maybe it's part of the budget conversation of how we will be making use of those funds.
And Trish, you have a response to that? I know that there's been some, I guess, probably planning or talk about that.
I think that is information that you will receive during those meetings. I'm not really I don't have any information really to provide you any details. So yes,
I think also, Sammy, I think also, and Trish might be wrong, but I know there are a couple of different ways that different monies are coming to us. And I know part of it is sorting out what would be spent from this, what we spent from that. And I think that's part of what's happening as well. I think with the that may be coming. So
thank you very much. Yes, there is some understanding as I understand to sort out on how we can use some of those funds. So
yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay,
is this just about
at a minimum, just because it's estimated that we'll receive just the breakdown of what that estimate, like how we're estimating it essentially. Thank you.
Okay, is this a question still about the pandemic response payment? Is that what this is about, Susan? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Barbara too.
Yes, just a quick comment, Mayor Lavelle. So I too want to just make a quick shout out to, Julie told me 156 town employees will be receiving this supplemental pay. And, we just really appreciate all of their services during the pandemic to keep the wheels of government rolling along. One of the lessons I feel like we all learned is that town staff can continue to, very ably, very reliably provide services virtually. And so as we come out of the pandemic, I just hope we will use this opportunity to consider allowing town staff to work 1, 2, 3 days a week at home, as many employers are doing all over the country. And this would, of course, provide more flexibility for staff while also reducing carbon emissions from commutes and reducing the need for parking at the 203. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and also just want to say thank you to town staff for rising up to the challenge of the pandemic in a big way.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Susan. Barbara?
Local government open though, right? They need to be open. I'm just saying. Thank you, Councilmember Romaine. Back to what Sam was saying. I know in my last meeting with David, he was talking, I think Trish kind of was touching on it, that they were just trying to wait on the regs, because there's regulations around how the money is spent and all that. And so I think to your question, Sammy, that once I guess all that's worked out, then it'll become more apparent and in our budget meetings. So that was all I wanted to say, because I just
Thanks, Barbara. Yeah, appreciate that. All right, so Randy, motion for 1 and 2, seconded by Susan. All in favor, say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Me? Aye. Sammy?
Hi.
Barbara?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
And then Damon.
Aye.
Okay, so then the only thing about the third item is I don't know if y'all saw the email, but I had emailed Trish and I asked if the language in there regarding the equal employment and procurement plan, if it could also include sexual orientation, gender expression, or identity, and listed several other categories in it. And so Trish suggested that I pull it off the consent agenda and see if someone would make that motion to include that in that clause.
So moved.
So moved.
I think I saw Damon's hand first as the other ones were yelling. So then I'm gonna go second, Jackie. So all in favor, say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Me, aye. Sammy?
Hi.
Barbara?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
I was called on Kathy. Okay, all right, so we're ready to, she says aye. All right, so we're ready now, Trish, to move on.
Sure thing. Thank you. Your first item under other matters this evening is a presentation from the Orange County Home Preservation Coalition. And forgive me, I'm not sure who's going to make the presentation this evening, but
I think it's Ryan Bali is one of them.
that may very well be. My apologies.
Yeah, I see Ryan there in the attendee list.
Look in the list.
And a Carrboro resident too.
Anne Marie, I
Hello.
think you were going to introduce this item. I'm not sure which town account you're logged in on.
Morgan Cooper and Dan Sargent are the other two presenters.
I think I just brought them over.
And I think you're looking for, let's see.
I think she was going to introduce them. So if it's taken just a minute, we can go ahead and get started. I'm not seeing her logged in.
Yeah, I don't think I see, I don't think
Oh, now I see her. I'll bring Anne Marie over right now and then she'll introduce
Okay.
everyone in this item.
all right, great. Hello, Anne Marie. We can't hear you. Okay.
Good evening. This item is a presentation from the Orange County Home.
It's a little hard to hear you. I'm so sorry, Anne Marie. Can you turn up your volume just a little bit or?
Here we go. So this item is a presentation from the Orange County Home Preservation Coalition, which is a collaborative of organizations, including the town, that conducts home repairs on low-income households in Orange County. Most of the repair projects that the town funds through the Affordable Housing Fund come through this collaborative. And you have here Ryan LaValle, the coalition's coordinator, who's going to present, Dan Sargent, executive director of Rebuilding Together, and Morgan Cooper, UNC Department City and Regional Planning Master's candidate.
Great, thank you very much. I don't know who wants to take it away, but we're ready and interested in listening.
Wonderful. I think Morgan has some slides to just share, if that's okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can you all see the slides?
Yes.
Yes, we can see the sides and also see them off to the left. We can see, both sides of them, I guess.
Oh.
Can I ask a favor that you put the slides in presentation mode so that they'll
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did put it in presentation mode, but I don't know why that didn't work. Let's try that again.
So while that's, I think, getting figured out, I will keep our presentation short for you all. But I am Ryan LaValle. I am a occupational therapist, a community OT, as well as a postdoc in the Division of Occupational Science and Occupational Therapy at UNC. I have a joint position with the UNC Partnerships in Aging program, as well as the Orange County Department on Aging. And part of my role with the Department on Aging is to coordinate the Orange County Home Preservation Coalition, which we're very excited to sort of talk with you all about this evening and present some of the work that we've been doing over the past 3 years, well, 4 years now, as part of the coalition. So my co-presenters are Morgan Cooper, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, and Dan Sargent, and Erica Brown from TJCOG is not able to make it this evening. And Dan, I guess you can introduce yourself since you're here if you want, but Morgan and I will be doing the majority of the presenting.
Yeah, it's nice to see everyone. I'm Dan Sargent. I'm the executive director of Rebuilding Together of the Triangle. I know many of you, and thank you so much for your continued support for our work. I'm here in support of Ryan and Morgan, and if there are specific questions related to our role, but they're going to do most of the heavy lifting tonight. So thanks so much.
Morgan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Morgan, and as Anne-Marie said, I am a graduate student at UNC in public health and city and regional planning. And just while I've got the mic, I just want to confirm that you all can see the appropriate mode now. Yes, okay, great.
Yes, we can see it, thanks.
Great. So if you would change slides for me real quick, Morgan. Just to give you all a little bit of context, the Orange County Home Preservation Coalition was born out of the Orange County Master Aging Plan process in 2017. The Department on Aging identified some inefficiencies and challenges for older adults accessing home modifications and home repairs in the county. And so we wanted to bring together stakeholders who were providing these sorts of services across the county together to sort of figure out why that was happening. So for the past, during that aging plan process and the development of it, we sort of started asking those questions and talking through what some of those issues were. And we found that meeting together was a really helpful tool in addressing some of those things. And so for the past 4 years, 3.5 years, we've been meeting monthly and talking about how we can improve this sort of provision in Orange County as a collaborative. And so this work is what we're going to sort of present to you all this evening, as well as a program evaluation that we did this past summer to specifically look at how we're impacting Carrboro residents. So as of today, this particular coalition includes all of the people you see listed there, including the town of Carrboro, as well as many of our other partners who are doing home repair and preservation work, as well as care about aging and creating more access to home preservation services. And we don't only focus on aging, but about 75% of the older adults at of the applicants and homeowners that we serve are older adults in the county. And we'll talk about that for Carrboro as well. So just to sort of name the problem here, when we first started doing this work, what we found was there was a little bit of coordination happening, but not very much among the different organizations in the county. And so what we saw, for example, if a Carrboro homeowner wanted to get a home repair done or needed a home modification, they were bouncing between the different organizations, getting on different wait lists, and not really understanding which organization was best fitted to serve them. And then at the same time, those organizations weren't necessarily talking to each other, so they weren't necessarily using efficient funds and matching the types of jobs that they could do best through their organization with the right homeowners. And so part of the work here was to really figure out how we could get the homeowner to land at the organization that was best fit for them to get those funds used in the most efficient way possible. And as you can see, the town of Carrboro was in conversation with these different organizations, but largely it was happening, I think, on a one-to-one basis rather than in a collective of the coalition. So over the past 4 years, what we've done, including through a large grant that we received from the Southern Energy Efficiency Alliance, we have tried to really work towards meeting these objectives using these 5 tools. So we really are interested in increasing access to and comprehensiveness of home repair and energy efficiency services, and decreasing that administrative burden of applying for service for the homeowner. So making sure people can get to the right organization in the right amount of time. As well as decrease those organizational inefficiencies where they're trying to manage different applications, as well as not spending the right money on the right repairs. And so making sure that we're partnering with other organizations to do the repairs they're most suited for. We also wanted to decrease weatherization and energy efficiency service deferrals. What we often saw were people were going to Central Piedmont Community Action, the major weatherization provider in Orange County, and they weren't able to actually receive their services because they had a roof leak or their HVAC system needed something fixed or something that was preventing them from getting those services, even though they were eligible for them. But CPCA does not do those types of repairs, so we needed to figure out a way for them to identify them before they actually got to those weatherization service providers. So part of the coalition is really making sure that process unfolds in an effective way so that weatherization and energy efficiency can be given as many times as possible throughout the process. And then finally, and most importantly, we wanted to make sure that all of our services and work was really improving the quality of life for the applicants to the coalition and making sure that they could age in community, use their homes, and continue to have less energy burden and those sorts of things within their home. So to do that, we used 5 different tools. Again, with the help of a grant, we streamlined intake through a screening tool that was developed across all of the organizations to collect the right information about those homeowners to make sure that they could we sort of knew as a coalition who was going to be able to serve them based on income, based on how many people were in the household, those sorts of things. And we're able to access that through a database that we've developed. In the same time, RTT really came to the table and offered a home assessment manager to this collaborative. And so what now happens is a comprehensive home assessment process where we receive this screening, we identify who is able to serve them, and then RTT goes out and does a comprehensive home assessment to identify all the potential home repairs and modifications that that home might be able to receive, even if it might be outside of RTT's scope or eligibility. So they're really working for the coalition as a whole so that we can identify the right organization to serve that homeowner. And at the same time, we're doing coordinated case management largely through UNC's Partnerships in Aging funding and the Department on Aging. Me and Morgan is who that is. And we are essentially helping shepherd these cases and homeowners through the different organizations and making sure they hit where they need to get as many of those repairs from that comprehensive assessment done as possible. And then again, we've developed a database that started out pretty rocky and wasn't that great at the beginning. But now we've developed a 2.0 that is really functioning alongside that comprehensive approach and really allows us to track, as you'll see this evening, a lot of data about the home repairs that are happening in Orange County broadly and even disaggregate that data for the different jurisdictions. And so we see unified data collection and evaluation process is really possible across Orange County. And I think Morgan will reiterate this, but this is the first time we've been able to really aggregate home repair and preservation data across county organizations. We've only ever seen it as individual county organizations reporting, but this gives us a picture of the county as a whole, as well as some data about the different jurisdictions. So if you'll go to the next slide. This is our model now. It's a lot more organized. I like structure. And so it's really founded on coordination, collaboration, and communication. As the coordinator, I'm helping all of that happen with a lot of partnership across the different organizations. Our Carrboro homeowner gets sort of pulled out of the mess of it all, and they're able to get that initial screening, submit that to the coalition as a whole. And then that is given to the home assessment manager who produces this comprehensive home assessment that then the coalition really looks at and understands how best to walk that homeowner through the different services that they provide. And we are still in conversation with the town and we're able to sort of work around funding and think about how we can streamline your all's processes to make sure your funds are being used most efficiently for your residents. Go to the next slide. So we're going to present some data for you all that is from our database from January 2019 until April 1st, 2021. So about a little over 2 years. We have about 171 households in Orange County that have gone through this coalition process, of which 19 in our database are in Carrboro. This does only include homeowners who went through our process. So some of our partners may be serving Carrboro residents outside of the coalition process. So it's not necessarily fully comprehensive. So there may be more work is what I'm saying. This is a low estimate. So the typical Carrboro applicant that we see to the coalition, the age is older than the typical town average. So Carrboro applicants are older than the general adult population of the town. Over 75% were 50 plus, 64% are 60 plus and over, and the most of our applicants from Carrboro were 60 to 69 years old. Carrboro applicants are disproportionately Black or African American. We see 79% of our applicants from Carrboro being Black or African American as compared to the population of only 11%. We also virtually see all Carrboro applicants having an income at or below 80% AMI. And this includes people who might apply and are not necessarily eligible. So we accept applications from everybody, even if they're the chancellor of UNC, we would accept an application. So we still might see people over certain AMIs. We don't exclude those, but we are really targeting and connecting with the right population here because we see that the largest percentage of Carrboro applicants were under that 30% AMI. So we're really targeting that low income household population. And then finally, much like the coalition as a whole, 79% of the Carrboro applicants were single family homes, detached homes. That's true of the county overall, but we did see a disproportionate amount of applicants coming from manufactured home residents compared to the town supply of those homes. And so that's something that we're noticing across the county is that there's a lot of need for manufactured home repair and preservation, but because of certain funding regulations, we aren't necessarily able to do a lot of that because of the land not being owned by the person who owns the manufactured home. So our progress in Carrboro, it's important to note that this did happen during the pandemic. And so again, this is a low estimate of the types of work. We believe that there's a lot of capacity here, but it was limited by the pandemic. Since January 2019, the coalition has comprehensively assessed 18 of the 19 homes in Carrboro. That one that wasn't was before our comprehensive assessment process. And so all of everyone is sort of going through that process now. We have partners with work actively planned at 8 homes in Carrboro. So that means that there is still work to be done and that we have funding, we have eligibility, and we're ready to go. They're on the docket for that work to be done. And then at least one partner has completed their work at 10 homes. And so this means that when we do the comprehensive assessment, a lot of times there's certain things that we aren't able to do because we can't find the funds or we can't find eligible organizations to be able to provide those services. And so we do as much as we can from that comprehensive assessment using the funds and services available. And so we've completed work at 10 homes in Carrboro. And then of those 19, we've completed all of the identified needs of the comprehensive assessment at 3 homes using all the eligibility and funding networks that we can to get the work done. So that's just a broad overview of Carrboro and what we've been able to do. And now Morgan's going to tell you a little bit about the program evaluation and some of the impacts and outcomes that we've seen from this work.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So as he said, now we'll shift gears to talking about our findings from our evaluation process. And as Ryan mentioned, this is the first ever cross-county home repair data collection. In the past, individual organizations have obviously collected data on their own service and work, but it's never been aggregated to the extent that we've been able to do here of all of us service providers or across the county. And so these findings represent or include all of Orange County. And as Ryan pointed out before, this includes the 171 homes in Orange County for the past 2 years. All right. So our evaluation process predominantly took place over the summer. It involved a homeowner survey with 39 homeowners and service recipients across both Orange and Chatham counties, since a parallel process was happening in our neighbors. We conducted 2 focus groups with the service providers, funders, and just participating organizations in the coalition. And this included representation from the town of Carrboro. And we also analyzed our administrative data from the shared database that Ryan talked about before. We had initially planned to conduct an analysis of energy efficiency impacts on our collective repairs, but we came up against a couple of roadblocks. So first was that we didn't already have utility data for all of the homeowners who received weatherization repairs. And even among those for whom we did have some data, we didn't necessarily have sufficient months or all of the months 1 year before the repair and all of the months 1 year after the repair, which is important because an accurate energy efficiency analysis would include weather normalization of 1 full year to get the whole weather cycle. So in addition to not having access to a sufficient amount of data, this weather normalization process would have required some technical expertise that was a bit beyond the capacity of our evaluation team. And even though there is not a clear path to move forward with doing this analysis just yet, there are partners in the coalition who are interested in doing this, especially given that we know that energy efficiency and climate action are chief concerns in both the town and county. So then moving on to the types of repairs that we're identifying through the home assessment, this figure shows both the types of repairs and the frequency with which we are identifying them, both with our updated home assessment process, and then compares it to previously in our old database, or that kind of prototype that Ryan talked about. And those were needs that were mostly identified through homeowner request or through kind of problems that we found along the way. So what this is showing is that the home assessment is allowing the coalition to proactively identify a comprehensive set of repairs and collect the right kind of information really early on in the repair process. And then narrowing in specifically on weatherization and energy efficiency repairs, we are seeing that service needs for these kinds of repairs are identified much more often than, again, they were previously. And so with knowing this up front, then the coalition is increasingly able to internally refer these services to CPCA and use climate action funds to respond to these repair needs and also respond in sequence, since we're also identifying early on some of these prerequisite repairs like roof or other kind of repairs that would have otherwise caused a service deferral.
And I just want to add, Morgan, that since we've been doing this work, it's been one of the first times that we've heard CPCA say that they're meeting Orange County quota for the types of weatherization that they're doing. So we really are helping them get to the right houses and spend the money. Mm-hmm. We are seeing them spend that money, and it's been really helpful also using the climate action funds that have been passed through Orange County. We had a big hand in helping to identify the use of those funds through this process and coalition work.
Yeah, thanks for adding that, Ryan. And so kind of implied in our name as a coalition, then one of our foundational goals was collaboration, also showed in the model that Ryan illustrated for us earlier. And so what we found through our evaluation process is that all applicants or homeowners who are applying to the coalition are receiving some level of collaboration just by being discussed through our shared case management. But even more importantly, nearly 75% of the applicants are either being served by multiple organizations or being served by an organization for which they did not initially apply. So this kind of represents what would have been a missed opportunity if they hadn't found the coalition. And if anything, then this kind of frequency of collaboration underestimates how often we actually are collaborating, because these homeowners who are currently only being served by one organization, which is the same that they applied to, may subsequently have been served by a second one. We just hadn't captured that at the point at which we were doing this analysis. So all of this is to say that we are robustly collaborating. And so shifting to what this collaboration means for organizations, our focus group participants shared that the collaborative tools are helping the coalition partners really develop collective capacity, creatively fund the work. And when we say the work, we mean both the administrative processes of coalitioning and working together, and creatively funding the actual repair services or the hammer to nail work. And all of this is really allowing organizations to focus on their strengths. And so by collecting the right information upfront through both our unified screening tool and through the comprehensive home assessment, we're able to make better matches of service providers and organizations to home repair needs. This means that organizations are more efficiently and appropriately using their funds. And as Ryan mentioned before, we are hearing reports of increased service provision, not only from CPCA, but from other partners in the coalition as well. And so what this means for Carrboro, since we had a representative from Carrboro in our focus groups, is that Carrboro is attesting to the fact that these collaborative processes are decreasing the administrative burden of when organizations apply for home repair funding, and that it's overall just improving collaboration and communication between the town and the service providers. And we have up here a quote from our focus group that I'll just leave for a moment for you all to read. And then finally, just shifting gears to the outcome and impact on our homeowners. Again, these findings represent all of Orange County, and in some cases, a little bit of Chatham County as well. But overwhelmingly, homeowners who are receiving services from the coalition are agreeing that they would not have been able to afford home repairs if it hadn't been for the coalition. And so in this way, then we're really helping to reduce financial barriers in accessing home repairs. They're also overwhelmingly agreeing that they received their home repairs in a timely manner. And this is really important because the waiting times was one of the kind of key drivers in our coalescing as a coalition, and was one of the main goals for the county's master aging plan that Ryan referred to earlier. And admittedly, homeowners may still wait a while for some of the larger repairs, but in the meantime, then some of the other organizations in the coalition are able to make smaller repairs, like the Orange County Department on Aging's Handy Helper program. And homeowners are also just kind of having more touch point or more contact with the coalition and our partners along the way. And so there's just more communication that's happening. In terms of our quality of life, which is kind of the capstone to everything, or when the residents are happy, then we know that it's doing well. The homeowners that we're serving are also reporting improved quality of life, so decreased stress in their home. They're reporting increased comfort in their home and better safety as well. And just narrowing in on that safety, then the residents are overwhelmingly, again, reporting that they're improving their ease of doing normal daily activities and just kind of moving around the house. And they're also reporting decreased fear of falling, which is important because that's a good proxy measure for actual risk of falling. And we are serving a predominantly older adult population for whom falls present a large risk. So with that, I'll turn it back to Ryan to close this out.
Yeah, so I think our take-home points is that, one, we just want to thank you all so much for supporting this initiative and for the continued participation of the town of Carrboro in the coalition. We think it's really important to have all the jurisdictions, especially those with repair programs, really represented and in conversation with us. It's really provided a lot of gusto for the work that we have so much engagement from the different jurisdictions. But I think also it's important for you all to know that as we develop, we are looking for funding and partnerships to sustain that collaboration and make sure that this sort of work can continue happening, and really think about how we as a county can really come together to keep this coalition alive. So with that, I think we can open it up to questions, and thank you all so much for the opportunity to share this work.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation. Let's go Sammy, Damon, and then Jackie, and then Barbara.
You're muted, Sammy.
Yeah, Sammy, you're muted. He might be breaking up a little. Sammy, we can't hear you. Doing sign language.
Sorry, hear me now?
Yeah,
you
now
hear
we
me
can hear you.
Sorry
Yes.
about that. Yeah, my computer didn't have its battery charged and it's about to crash. So it was cutting some things out. Amazing work, y'all. Thank you so much. It's so amazing to hear about an example of collaboration and increasing of efficiency, and the way that so many organizations doing such good work are doing. I'm especially excited about the community actions, Piedmont Community Actions ability to weatherize homes in this climate emergency. And I look forward, I'm so glad that they're meeting their quotas for our county. I look forward to leveraging funds that hopefully will happen with the infrastructure bill. And you guys are positioning us so that we could run with that, be shovel ready to really ramp up the weatherization. It's one thing to meet the quota. The next step would be to have a campaign for weatherizing homes and making homes affordable. So currently, it sounds like you're depending a lot on referrals from organizations, but we could expand that if we had a campaign. Which brings me to a question I had is the pool of organizations that are referring to you all. It would be really valuable to, I think it's in your documents, but in your illustration to include that, because I feel there may be some gaps in looking at who you're serving, especially thinking of Latinx community. So if we could really be thinking about that pool of who's doing the referrals. Then the accounting for the impact of the maintenance and weatherization that you're doing, and to the degree that you're making a lot of savings through these collaborations and the efficiencies that come through it, as an opportunity to further bolster for us jurisdictions to put money up. It would be really valuable to have that number. If you could somehow approximate what that represents, I think that would be a good way to make your case for arguing that you need the centralized coordination to be sustained. And so I encourage you to share that with us when you get to it. Let's see what else. I just want to mention this roadblock that you had with the assessment of energy efficiency and the weatherization is one that we've found in other areas. The lack of collaboration from electric utility and gas utilities is really bad, and it's an opportunity for us as a jurisdiction to lobby our state representatives to make that data more accessible so we can better do our climate emergency work. And I think that there's one more question, and then I'll read through my notes. I may have to come back to finalize my questions, but the last question I can make out from my notes is in your assessment, when you do the survey, if you could maybe ask in advance, assuming that we will be able to solarize homes in the future for low income, because that's what the infrastructure plan is all about, is like people who have historically been marginalized and who are low income, how to do infrastructure. If we could get a tab of those who you're already serving up front, so we could readily go to them and say, look, this program exists, we'd love to solarize your homes. Just one more question to include in your many questions I'm sure you already have. Anyways, in summary, I'm amazed and very grateful by the work, and I think y'all have a great model for other aspects of the work that we do as local governments, and collaborating and coordinating organizations that are already doing really good work. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sammy. Let's see. Damon, then Jackie, then Barbara, then Randy.
Thanks, Lydia. Ryan and Morgan, thanks so much, and Dan for being here. I had two questions, but Morgan actually managed to address, I think, the first one, and I just wanted to appreciate the way that Morgan ended the presentation, her presentation on what this means for the homeowners, right? That this has an impact on people's lives, right? Their everyday lives, their ability to feel safe and comfortable and secure in their homes. And frankly, probably for many of them to stay in their homes, right? Which we know is especially important for lower income and fixed income residents. So thanks so much for ending on that note, Morgan. I think it's incredibly important, and I hope that you'll continue carrying that message. I think this ties into what I feel like is a really important theme for the work that coalitions like yours and also, the folks in our housing and community development department like Anne Marie are doing over the past couple of years or so, which is coordination, right? And I feel like even especially over the last year, we've seen this increased coordination among the jurisdictions and their staffs and the service providers and other groups in the community to make things just work better, tick better, and so I just want to appreciate you all for being a big part of that and for bringing that approach to the work you're doing. Ryan, so you're sort of here telling us a little bit about the success of the work and the sort of the way the process has improved, it's more efficient, it's having a bigger impact, presumably. So what would make your work even easier, right? I think dollars is probably a big part of that, right? I think you ended your presentation, your comments on that, kind of implicitly suggesting that, more funding is always helpful, but, how would more funding be helpful? And what other things would make your work more efficient and more effective for homeowners and for the community?
Yeah, I think really thinking about that coordination of funding, both from an administrative level as well as sort of strategically knowing that, for example, CBG funds that go to RTT is supporting this sort of work as a coalition, and knowing that it doesn't necessarily need to come to the coalition for it to be helping us, and knowing that you can really support the organizations because the organizations have a commitment to the coalition. And I think because they've been able to benefit so much from it. I think that there is need for administrative sort of funding and thinking about how we can continue sort of my position and Morgan's work in that continual evaluation, and thinking about creating accessible data for the different jurisdictions and supporting those sorts of infrastructure changes and continued development, because we're still learning how to make a database work well for everybody. So I think that's the support sort of broadly that we need to make sure that this coalition continues. Right now, we have a lot of support from the Department on Aging, UNC's Partnerships in Aging funds Morgan. And so really also seeing it as sort of an accountability thing for the jurisdictions is that this work really is the work of the residents. And I think that it's an important thing for the tax dollars to support in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I don't know if Dan also might have some things to say to that question.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think, Damon, your comment, money is always valuable. I think it's probably less the quantity of money overall that is of real concern. Some of the coordination that we're doing, we're sort of bending over backwards to make projects fit into the funding sources that are available, because the funding sources have so many different, distinct, and sometimes artificially complicated requirements that don't align. And so even down to things like the weatherization program uses 200% of poverty as its income cap, and the State Housing Finance Agency programs use 50% of AMI, and there's a gap between the two of those. And there's other things at 65 and 80% of AMI, and all these. And then there's a bunch of different sort of requirements built into each of these programs that make us have to sort of a lot of times tie ourselves in knots to knit together a solution for each homeowner. We're going to continue doing the work at the local level to make these funds work for the folks that are being served. But we really appreciate the work that Carrboro has done to simplify the funds that you're providing and make those accessible. I think we would love to be able to see at some point down the line this model demonstrate and sort of illuminate for funders the cost of the complication that they inject in the process, and really look to try to get some of these folks to say, if the agencies that are putting the funds on the ground are willing to get together and sort of put their individual identities aside a little bit and figure out how to do this together, we can also figure out how to cooperate in how we make these funds available in ways that would allow homeowners to access them more effectively, and for us to waste less resources and energy trying to concoct the perfect scenario that allows us to get folks access to all the repairs they need. Frankly, we love that number of homeowners being served by 3 and 4 organizations to be gone. Like that isn't an efficient way to do it. It's the only way to do it now. And so we're going to keep doing it, but we would love in the long term for there to be sort of a melding of the minds with the funding community to say, we need to get at this problem in a way, and sort of everybody having their own goals and objectives on a funding side isn't helpful, and it's just not getting us where we're trying to go.
Great. That's really helpful. Thanks for those insights, especially this idea, which I think we've encountered with some of our other work in the past year, especially with coordinating around housing assistance, is that the fewer barriers, right? Let's just take the barriers down, send the money as close to the hands that need it as we can, right? And so just that idea of direct financial assistance is really important. I just want to, before I finish, I won't take any more time, just quickly echo Sammy's comment at the end of his questions about how useful it could be as we're telling these stories to other stakeholders to also kind of try to quantify the impact of the work you're doing. I think that can be helpful not only in, kind of continuing to make the case for the work you're doing, which is incredibly important, but also to some of Sammy's other points, help us see how the work is helping us meet some of our other goals as well around climate action and so on. So I appreciate Sammy's comment on that.
Thank you. Thanks, Damon. Let's see. Jackie, Barbara, then Randy and Susan.
I want to thank you all for your work, for your presentation, as well as for the work that went into this. I'm a social worker by training with an emphasis on community organization and development. In a way, you're bringing things full circle. There used to be a time when United Ways filled this role. When we had it wasn't just an Orange County United Way, there was a Chapel Hill Carrboro United Way. And through their funding, they created these coalitions and they created these easier paths. And then as we kind of stopped being local and all the funding organizations became regional or state or multi-jurisdictional, then the complications and the people falling through the cracks began to happen. So I love that you're kind of proving small is beautiful, or at least smaller is beautiful again. With that in mind, and with other comments that people have made, I wonder if you, this is very needed in so many ways and in so many services. And I think we live in a community where all of our nonprofits try and collaborate. They really do, but they run into barriers all over the place. And you seem to have come up with a way of dealing with those barriers, both for the people who are served and for the organizations trying to do the serving. That by way of saying, is it possible for you at some point to write up your process, to take the content out of it and write up the process, so that I also serve as the liaison to our Human Services Advisory Board. And I think as we move towards next year, this would be useful, but it would also be useful to write something up. And Morgan, I know you have enough to do right now, but it would be a great career starter if you could do it, to write something up and publish it, like in one of the state, one of the publications from the Institute of Government, for instance, like Southern States or something like that. I just think it could be, you've perfected a model that people have been trying to do for a long time, and you're bringing us back to using regional and state and federal resources with a micro focus, which is really hard to do. So thank you for your work. I think I'll be in touch with all of you after this, but I think you've really hit on a model that should be shared. So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. Let's see. Barbara, then Randy, then Susan.
So just to add on to what my colleagues have already said, it's a great presentation. It's wonderful work. And I really appreciate the streamlining of the process and this great collaborative spirit, you know, this creating these great finished products. And I guess the major thing for me, it makes life easier for homeowners, you know, especially those that are aging in place and they have those limited income streams. You know, it's just one less thing that they have to worry about. So thank you so much. This work is wonderful. So I had one other question. So I was wondering about how people get to you, like the recommendation and application process. Or did I miss that somewhere in the presentation, like how they can get to you? And I think I'm going back to what Sammy had mentioned earlier about the Latinx community, and, you know, then Damon and some others mentioned, you know, about barriers to access, you know, stuff like that. So that was my question. Like, how, I think I know how they get to you, but like, how can we like take down some of the barriers? And I'm sure that is an ongoing conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, so right now, most of our referrals, I would say, actually come from the organizations that are in the partnership, that people come to them and they say, Habitat, will you serve me? RTT, will you serve me? I think our most important and most intense right now community partner is the Marion Cheek Jackson Center. They're doing a lot of outreach in the North Side, Pine Knolls, Tin Top communities, and really making sure that those homeowners know and can get connected to these programs as well. We do see all of our applications, our initial screenings are available in Spanish and I speak Spanish, so I'm able to do some of those home visits and interpret and translate for different homeowners if they do come to us, and we let people know. I do want to build a stronger connection with El Centro Hispano and make sure that they're aware of this work. I think they just haven't yet been connected. And so I think as we stabilize the coalition and continue to grow, that's absolutely on our agenda.
Oh, thank you. All right. Thanks.
One thing I would add too is we also reached out and met with the Department of Social Services. That was one area we thought that potentially they would be encountering folks that needed help but wouldn't necessarily find the sort of housing specific organizations that are frequently that are kind of build the coalition. And with a lot of this centered on aging, we also wanted to make sure this was accessible to folks that were not aging, at least not yet. And so we actually developed a one-page form that they were able to build into their intake process, and that's been pretty effective. We've gotten probably a dozen or so folks that went to DSS for other needs, and when DSS was able to say, hey, are you concerned about your housing? They've been able to send them to us. And so that has been another conduit, both for folks that maybe wouldn't have found us as easily otherwise, but several of those have been Latinx families that were able to find us too. So that's a place we think will be a continuing source of support and of access for that community too.
And I'll add that we've also reached out to UNC hospitals, specifically the trauma sort of area where they're trying to make sure people can discharge to their homes. And unfortunately, getting information into patients' hands is quite the task. And so we have some documents that their social workers have. They have the link to connect with us. But again, that healthcare to human service bridge is sometimes full of large holes. So it's a continual challenge that I think we're trying to mend.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks, Barbara. Let's see, Randy and then Susan.
Well, I don't know how to thank you, Ryan and Morgan and Dan, for the work that you've done. I really enjoyed reading through the PowerPoint and then seeing your presentation for a couple things, and I just want to underscore, first of all, that clearly you all have used a systems thinking approach because it's so evident in every piece of your work. The other thing that really struck me was that I knew someone had to be involved with occupational therapy because it has, Ryan, it has your hand all over it. In the fact that it is concrete, it is experiential, it has the common sense of how occupational therapy has to work. And I think that that's part of that formula that Damon's kind of referring to. And so in addition to applauding the work that you've done, and I love the 3 C's because I think it always comes down to coordination, collaboration, and communicating. That Dan, I would challenge you and your partners to create a schematic of what if you were to apply a systems thinking mind map to how you break down the siloed funding of the jurisdictions. What would that look like? And just to give us a taste, since you're already on a journey that is steeped in a process of collaboration, if you could just sketch something out and what that looks like. Because I think the interesting thing that I've learned about systems thinking is that when you see a model that works and it's kind of laid out, you grasp it. And unlike when somebody says, oh, that's systems thinking. No, but when you can look at it, and this is what Jackie was referring to when Jackie said, if you could write it up. Well, yeah, in addition to writing it up, I would take it one step further and show us not only what you've done, but go to that what if place. And I say that because you touched on 2 really important things. One, the pulse of the heart of people who have need in their homes. Why? Because the greatest interest and likewise the greatest fear for people as they age is that they cannot age in place. And I say that as somebody who has many friends my age and older who are in that demographic. I mean, you're holding the hand of the silver tsunami, and we know it. And so I can't thank you enough. And in any way that we can help you to move forward, not only in thinking about the work you're currently doing, but in addition to how some of the work can be applied to the interests we have in home weatherization, solarization, and electrification. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thanks, Randy. Thank you for those comments. And Susan.
Yes, thank you, Lydia. And Ryan, Morgan, and Dan, I too want to share my big thanks as well for all of your collaborative work that you are doing. It's really improving the day-to-day lives of population that's just especially at risk in our county as well as in Carrboro. And that's community members of color who are very poor, very low income, and who also are very often elderly. So I have just a couple questions. One is, I haven't heard anything about this. Do people who are getting these repairs done, do they pay for the services? And if so, do they pay on some kind of sliding scale?
So almost all of our services are free of charge. The only one that I would say is sort of not is the Department on Aging's Handy Helper program. We function from a cost share model that is based on a sliding scale of the income of the homeowner. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's sometimes if they are applying maybe through a USDA grant or some other, Dan is a better one to answer this question, but there are some loan options as well where they sort of are either it's a forgivable loan or they do pay that money back, but it's not through our organizations, it's sort of in partnership with. So I'll let Dan answer that a little bit, but none of our organizations specifically charge homeowners for the home repair.
Ryan did a really good job. Several funding sources, including the State Housing Finance Agency, and the USDA use a forgivable loan, sort of where the payments are deferred and forgiven over time. And it's essentially an affordability mechanism to help encourage folks to stay in the home and enjoy the benefit of the repairs, but to discourage selling the home. And some of those have more teeth than others. The only program that really does have true repayment is a USDA program. That's only available in areas defined as rural by the Rural Development Office of the USDA. Carrboro, within the town, none of that would be considered rural. This would be like very northern and very western portions of the county that folks are eligible. That is a great program. It's called the 504 Home Repair Program. And they can get, folks over 62 can get up to $10,000 as a grant. And anyone below 50% of median income can access $20,000 at 1% interest for 20 years, which creates really favorable terms for folks that are struggling with significant repair needs. They do pay the loan back, but it's frequently, even if you took all 20,000, it's maybe an $85 a month payment, which is significant. But in many cases where we've been able to use this loan, we're able to save the homeowner more than that in terms of utilities by making smart investments in HVAC and other things that they're currently dealing with. And so it's a program that's worked really well to help in places with significant need in rural areas, and where the homeowner has some ability to help bear the cost, and we can amplify what we're able to do. So that's the one place where folks do repay. Habitat also charges essentially a fee, but it's like $100, and it's just built into their process. But they're not paid based on it's not paying for the materials. It's just a fee for the process, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Great, that is good to hear. I noticed that one of the partners is Hope Renovations, which of course offers apprenticeship programs for underemployed women, and they are learning everything from carpentry to plumbing to electrical work, landscaping. And I'm curious if there's any other apprenticeship opportunities through this coalition. And I'm wondering, especially any partnering with Durham Tech Community College to offer apprenticeships to some of their students to help with the repair work.
So I would say again, Dan might be able to answer that a little bit, but from a construction apprenticeship, that they're the only ones that I know of in the coalition that are currently providing that sort of thing. But we also work a lot with students from the university who are getting other types of degrees to help us. I've had occupational therapy students work with us, Morgan through the Partnerships in Aging program as well. So we do have sort of learning and education happening through the coalition. I'm not aware of any other program other than Hope that is doing that, but Dan, you might be aware.
We don't have anything else happening with the coalition in Orange County. We did just finish at Rebuilding Together a small pilot with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development in Durham, connected with Durham Tech and the city to help a young woman who's working on transitioning to a career in the trades. And she got some training at Durham Tech and then spent a few weeks with us before entering full-time employment with another partner. And so we're open to those opportunities. It has been the support needed to make that transition is something that we don't necessarily have the capacity. So we've relied on partnerships with folks like OEW off the Office of Economic and Workforce Development in Durham to help us navigate that process. So many of the layers in terms of how a successful transition go beyond the workplace itself. And so we're very open to looking at those opportunities. And I think one of the opportunities would potentially be looking even at the trade programs within the public school system. We've done a little bit again, looking at Durham, we've done a little bit with Southern High School. And I know there's opportunities like that in Orange County as well that we'd love to find a pathway to do.
Mm-hmm. Great. Final question, and you all have been so helpful, both the presentation as well as all the information through these questions. So thank you again tonight. My final question, and it's a quick one, is we have talked about trying to quantify your impact, and Is there, I don't know if there's a way of quantifying how many people are able to stay in their homes because of the repairs that you are providing? And if so, is that something that you do include in your database?
We do not currently have that in our database. It is, I think, the dream of all of us to be able to collect that sort of data and ask those questions. It's very hard to prove something that did not happen. And so it's a challenge to sort of be able to see that. We do have exploration happening around healthcare costs and quantifying our connection to sort of saving Medicare, Medicaid sorts of things. But we have not been able to, other than just asking people if they feel like they've been able to stay in their home longer. We have played with that question some in our surveys, but again, it's a challenging sort of data point to gather in a real way. So no, we haven't yet achieved that, but we want to desperately.
Great. Ryan, Morgan, and Dan, thanks again very much for all of the good work that you are doing for the community.
Okay, great. Lots of good feedback and comments. I echo many of the accolades you all got for this. And I wanted to thank you again, Ryan, Morgan, Dan, and Erica, who couldn't be here. And also I saw Sherry's name on that big old report. But anyway, thank you so much for providing all this information for us. It's really awesome. So council members, it looks like our task is just simply to receive the report. I don't know if we want a motion for that, to receive the report. Or if we just want to okay, Jackie, motion to receive the report
with great appreciation.
Great. Okay. Motion by Jackie, second by Randy. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Aye. Susan?
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
And Jackie?
Aye.
Great. Awesome. Again, thank you all for spending some time with us this evening.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Okay, Trish, Ms. Manager, next.
Good thing. Thank you. The next item, item 2 under other matters, is the 2020 annual update from the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness. And Anne Marie is going to do a brief introduction for Corey this evening to provide you with the presentation.
Very brief. I think you all know Corey. She's here to present the 2020 annual report for the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness, and she is the coordinator of that program.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, Corey.
Good evening. Really excited to be here and to share with you what the partnership has been up to the last year. Is it okay if I share my screen and share the report?
Yeah, you should be able to do that.
Great. Right on. Yeah, so the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness, and again, hi, I'm Corey Root. I'm the manager of the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness. And the partnership has really had quite a year, as I guess we all have. But it's been a lot of new things added to the partnership from what we've talked about in the past. So one of the main changes is that the partnership is now part of the Orange County Housing and Community Development Department. And that partnership and placement and synergy has led to just incredible outcomes on a number of different fronts, and really allowed this incredible expansion to happen in this past year. So really incredibly grateful for that and the incredible support from Emma Sutton in particular, and all of my colleagues in the Housing and Community Development Department. So at this time last year, or let's say on March 1st at least, there was one employee of the Partnership to End Homelessness. Today there's 12 employees. So we've really expanded quite a lot, and all sort of during a pandemic. Plus, there's been pandemic response, and then plus we've continued our coordination work and our grant work and all of that kind of stuff. So I want to hit some of those highlights. So just starting out right with a bang, we've added 4 direct service programs in 2020. So the housing helpline, which we'll talk about a little bit more because there's a lot of pandemic response that the helpline has seen. Added 4 staff, and this is now sort of the main access point for anyone who's experiencing housing crisis. There's a phone number, email, folks can contact and get connected with housing and services. The Housing Access Coordinator has been funded for, this will be the 3rd year coming up. No, yes, this currently is the 3rd year that the fiscal year we're in right now. But it moved in 2020 from CEF, the Community Empowerment Fund, into the county, into the partnership. So that was a change. We also started a rapid rehousing program, which is a program for folks experiencing homelessness to get rapidly back into housing. And so there are 2 case managers working on that program. And then also a street outreach, harm reduction and deflection program, which we usually use their acronym, which is So Rad. And they are so rad, and we also call them So Rad. But they work strictly with folks that are living unsheltered. And there are 3 staff members of that program. So lots of staff, lots of programs. Also, COVID, as we know, global pandemic, so lots of folks in housing crisis. Pre-pandemic, and it's not exactly apples to apples because we had quite a different model before COVID, but we were serving about 60 households per month. We saw that just really increase, and you can see those numbers sort of just go up, up, up there in the chart, and we served over 4,000 households. Almost 10,000 calls and over 7,000 emails, lots of contacts, and really happy that we're able to connect members of the public with housing and services. Some more good news, we're continuing to have really good results through the Orange County Home Committee, which is really similar model actually to the Home Preservation Committee. It's sort of service providers all coming together, one access point, very similar. I really like the way they talked about their work, and I think I'm going to borrow some of that great language as we talk about the Home Committee, because it's sort of a very similar thing, except for people experiencing homelessness trying to get into housing. So again, had kind of our best year ever last year, housed 87 households, and that incredible work has really continued into 2021. We've already housed 41 households so far this year, and that is in large part due to another incredible partnership within the Orange County Housing Department. So we're now able to offer housing choice vouchers, the Section 8 vouchers, they used to be called, for people experiencing homelessness. And that has been just a completely transformational development and really allowed a lot of folks to get into housing quickly. So we've housed over 300 households now since we started this whole process in 2012. So I'm very excited about that. Another piece of good news is we're continuing to see decreases in people experiencing chronic homelessness. So that has been a 66% decrease between 2010 and 2020. The other populations that we track, families and veterans, relatively flat. Families a little bit down, but veterans fairly flat between that same time period. But some good news in the chronic homelessness. And again, we think that's largely due to the home committee work where folks are sort of all coming together, and we've prioritized a lot of resources into the permanent supportive housing program, which is a program specifically designed for people exiting chronic homelessness. And also we've concentrated a lot of our federal funding on that permanent supportive housing program as well. Speaking of federal funding, we got a big bump this year thanks to the CARES Act. So you can see here kind of hovering right around $700,000, just under $800,000 for a lot of years. And then pow, 2020, we got $1.7 million in federal funding last year, awarded at least. It's continuing on to be spent in future years. So that brings us over $11.2 million since the partnership sort of started this grant coordination work in 2005. And that grant coordination work, this is, sort of all community awards. Some of that funding is going to Orange County at this point, managed by the partnership, but that's also going to other community providers as well. HUD requires some group to do a lot of hoop jumping in order to access that funding, and the partnership does that sort of grant coordination piece work as well. Last year in the point in time count, we counted 124 people experiencing homelessness in Orange County. We did conduct the point in time count this past January. It was HUD made it sort of optional and gave a lot of different options to make sure that it was a safe count for COVID. And so we took HUD up on that offer and did not have our regular count where we recruit a lot of community volunteers and have people going around in cars together and that kind of thing. We did not do that this year. Luckily, we had the street outreach team onboarded and they led the point in time count. It takes a shockingly long time to get all of those numbers out of our database and coalesced. HUD just released just a couple of hours ago that the deadline to submit that information is mid-May. So we will definitely submit all of that by the deadline, and we will have our data review event again this summer with the 2021 point in time count numbers, which we're very anxious to see and to talk about with all community members. So we'll make sure folks are aware of when that event comes. But last year for 2020, the point in time count was again sort of relatively flat if we look back to 2010. It was a small decrease, about an 8% decrease between 2010 and 2020. But continuing decreases in the number of people living unsheltered, which we're really anxious to see what that looks like this year, now that we'll have actual more of a definite idea to make sure that with the street outreach team of sort of case management ongoing for that population and to feel very confident about that count. Looking at the number of people served over a 12-month period, there were 365 folks that were in shelter or transitional housing throughout the year, 225 in shelter, 140 in the community house, which is technically a transitional housing program, serves as a shelter in our community. Really pleased to see 42 folks served in the rapid rehousing program last year. That's up from 0 the year before, so definitely moving in the right direction. And 96 people in the permanent supportive housing program. And, we continue to apply racial equity lens to the work of the partnership. We know with racial disparities that we see, the overall Orange County population, 12% Black or African American, and the population of people experiencing homelessness, more than 4 times that, 51%. So we can't end homelessness unless we also look at racial equity and incorporate racial equity into the work completely. The partnership is currently going through a 7-month process with a consultant to do some really deep training of the leadership team members and looking to just even further incorporate racial equity into the work. So I'm really happy to talk further about any of this and answer any questions.
Okay, Corey, thank you. Thank you so much for that report. Lots of really good, positive information in it, especially given the horrific year that we had this past year. Council members, Any questions, thoughts, concerns for Corey? Let's start with Randy and then Susan.
Corey, great work. Great work. You know, I know when you were first shifting over to the design that you're using for these slides, it's been a couple of years, but it's so instructive. It's so clear. You know, you've got this great blend of being a real hands-on coordinator, at the same time being an incredible data wonk. I just have to tell you, I'm always impressed. But I will look forward to seeing how those numbers shake out. This is going to be a very odd year. And, you know, I'm wondering if I kind of almost feel like we're at a moment that we're creating new universe. There's a whole different conversation about transitional housing and rapid rehousing now. I'm just going to ask you to step away from the data just to give us a feel for whether or not you sense things are moving in a direction that there's more urgency and conversation about having wraparound services for the wide range of need.
Absolutely. Services are absolutely key to the work. There's no question about that. And you know, one position that has been added since even this report was created a couple of months ago, we got grant funding just recently, is for a housing stability case manager. So this is someone who's working with folks that are already in housing to make sure that they're able to maintain their housing. We see the need for case management everywhere. And, you know, we almost, you know, all of the funding is all for people, right? It's services. Services are really highly needed and an integral part of the work from stem to stern, just all the way through the system. So absolutely, really good point.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you because I saw you on the panel meeting of the minds, and one of the conversation, and I'm always so happy that you bring up the point that folks, you know, they never know how they got to be housing insecure. And they, you know, that you're always mindful of that, the emotional side for the individuals involved. And I always thank you for your sensitivity to that, even when, you know, I've been in the room with you with folks, and you always put that sensitivity first. So thank you, and I really appreciate the work you've done.
Good comments. Good comments, Randy. Thank you. Let's see. Susan's next, and then Sammy.
Good evening, Corey. I want to thank you for being here tonight, and also for all of the good work you do. It's this past year, it's been needed more than ever, and you and so many of the others people in the community have really risen up in such a big and important way to help people facing just so much housing insecurity right now. So that's been an important role. So you have gone from managing one person to managing 12 people. And tell us a little bit about how that feels and how that has gone.
Well, in a word, overwhelming. I think,
sure.
I'm really thrilled that the coordinator position for the partnership, we have just a fantastic candidate starting next week on Monday. And so she will really help with the staff oversight, with the coordination piece. It's really 2+ people's job. And so having help, to supervise staff and to do the coordination pieces will be just absolutely key, and really I'm very grateful that that's happening.
I'm glad help's on the way. The staffing has been funded mostly, the additional staffing through CARES money.
Correct. That's the large, and then also a small piece through the continuum of care, which is not CARES Act.
And so do you worry about being able to continue to provide that level of funding, knowing that CARES is kind of like this one-time shot in the arm?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for raising that. That's an incredibly important piece for the street outreach team. They launched last October with 12 months of funding. We're so glad that they were able to get off the ground, but that funding ends this September. So we're in conversation now with many different groups about, finding continuation funding for that important piece. For the rapid rehousing program, we kind of have patched that together with a lot of different funding sources and are continuing to talk about needing, we currently have 2 case managers. The current community need is a tripling in size of that. So adding 4 case managers to bring it up to 6 total case managers. So it's a lot of additional funding, and we'll continue to talk about our gaps and are currently underway with revising the gaps analysis to include all updated figures and that kind of thing.
Best of luck with everything. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Susan. Thanks for asking that about the breakdown of those finances. I was wondering that. Let's see, Sammy's next.
Hi, Corey. Thank you for all your work and your presentation tonight to us. Just have 2 questions. One is, I'm curious about the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness, the group that advises the work that y'all do. To what extent is there representation there by people with lived experience? And related to that, I think I heard through the Food Council that y'all were exploring stipends as a way to make that viable. And so I just wanted to get a sense, not just because the Food Council's interested in it, but the Carrboro Council's looking into that possibility too. What is your, where are y'all with that? What's your experience so far?
Yeah, thank you. So HUD requires that at least one member of your board be someone with lived experience of homelessness. And so we've always sort of been able to check that box. But starting a few years back in talking with the leadership team, that really felt woefully inadequate. And there's just sort of one member and potentially tokenizing. And so we've really looked to expand that and to have several different board members with lived experience of housing insecurity. And so, there's the HUD definition of homelessness, and absolutely we want to have someone who meets that definition, but there's also, people that have maybe not met that strict definition, but had different experiences that are also incredibly valuable to the work. And so the makeup of the board now includes several different people with several different types of lived experience, and also at different times in their lives. Someone with youth experienced homelessness in their youth, and other folks in adulthood. Again, a variety of perspectives is really needed, I think, to have a full sense. And I really agree with the necessity of centering people with lived experience in the work. And I think also in the compensation piece is absolutely key. So it is in our governance charter now that, folks are eligible for stipends. We need to sort of operationalize that. So we've had that as something that is available, but we haven't kind of operationalized that. But with HUD does give not a ton of money, but there's about $20,000 per year in planning grant funds that can be used for anything that is a coordination level activity. It can't be used for a program, but it can be used for the coordination work. And one of the eligible expenses from that is compensating folks with lived experience. So I've been in a lot of conversation with the HUD technical assistants. They have like a Oracle thing. You can like ask them a question and the Oracle speaks and they answer the question. But they've been slow to sort of give exact information about sort of what a timesheet is needed and that this is needed and that is needed. But yeah, really talking a lot with Ashley Hager a lot about sort of combining forces and trying to make a easy process at the county finance department also to just make this work and make it work for people. But beyond also people just on our board, we want anyone who's on a task force or an advisory committee or any of the committees to be eligible for this type of compensation and for them to be paid for their expertise.
Great, thanks, Corey. I look forward to hearing more about your exploration, and as it may help us inform how we go about it too. It's really valuable that you're looking into that. Thank you. The other last question I had was, I noticed in the breakdown of who is homeless that Latinx isn't represented, and a question of is that because there are no Latinx homeless people, or is that an issue with the data collection?
So HUD measures things in a way that doesn't really, well, exactly the way my brain works, but so there's the race question and then there's the ethnicity question. And so race is, the categories are Black, African American, Caucasian, but you can see all the categories. And then in the ethnicity, it's sort of Hispanic or non-Hispanic. And so we don't see, well, we see an underrepresentation of Latinx folks in the population experiencing homelessness. So that's something that is concerning also. I mean, we don't want anyone to be experiencing homelessness, but we also don't want folks that are eligible for services not seeking those services because of fear or that kind of thing. So that's something we've been, in talks with our service provider partners to try to understand better.
Great, thank you. Just to encourage in the future how to reconcile that HUD problem so that when you present it, it's got the fuller picture of the ethnicity component, because I think it's very important for us to understand how, and it sounds like it's more complicated, or maybe caused by fear of accessing the services too. So just to raise that as an opportunity to do further work on figuring out. Thank you, Corey, for all your work.
Thanks, Sammy. Damon, then Jackie.
Thanks, Lydia. Corey, thanks for being here once again. I was able to see your presentation the other day to the Affordable Housing Advisory Commission, so I don't have a lot of sort of substantive questions or anything. I just wanted to do my annual cheerleading of Corey and the partnership and appreciate the work you're doing. Also appreciating that Barbara represents us on your leadership team. And I know from having done that in the past that can be quite a commitment. And so thank you for your role in that too, Barbara. This gets back to this theme I mentioned earlier in the previous agenda item about coordination, right? That how I feel like I get a sense that that's happening more and more countywide around some of these issues around housing and community development. And so just hope that this is a way of reminding myself, but also hopefully just highlighting this for other council members that, to the extent that we can continue to shore up our own town's housing and community development staff and make sure that they have what they need to continue that high level of coordination, I think it's just incredibly important. And I think we're starting to see results because of that. So thanks also to Anne Marie and her colleagues in the department. The numbers you're showing us around funding levels being so much, because of the CARES funding in particular, is great. But I think it was Susan who raised the question about, well, what comes next, right? It just really highlights for me we're sort of in this period of, well, really a 40-year period, perhaps more, of austerity, essentially, an austerity approach to providing for people's needs. And ever, since the beginning of the 80s and probably going back farther than that. when sort of the federal approach to treating, dealing with people's basic needs just became no more, right? So here we are in this, we're like sort of emergency example of having all of a sudden kind of feeling a little bit flush with cash, and that's maybe overstating it, but finally seeing what it means to not only have funding that's significant, but then also have done the work at the staff level of creating a coordinated process to get that funding directly into the hands of people who need it. So, I think Susan's question is so important, and I'm really fearful of what the answer is going to be about what does come after the CARES Act and what it comes after the other sources of funds that may be coming through the infrastructure plan and so on. And because now we have a very clear example of what it means to actually have resources at our disposal. And I don't have an answer to that. I just pose that as a problem. Just echoes Susan's concern. Finally, Corey, could you just say very quickly, and I'll maybe get in touch with you about this by email, the SORAD program, we've been talking for years in the partnership about really building up that program in a formal way so that we had actual street outreach happening in a way that wasn't sort of criminalizing homelessness and pulling people into the criminal legal system unnecessarily. And therefore sort of endangering them further than they already are endangered by having housing crisis. What is the coordination between that team, for example, and the Carrboro Police Department? How are they working together? What is the role? How are people from that team dispatched? I just am curious about how that works.
Absolutely. And I also want to shout out Councilmember Fouché, who is not only on sort of all the regular committees, but has volunteered for the Racial Equity Committee and other committees. So it's an incredible time commitment and much appreciated. Also shouting out town staff who are just incredible collaborators at every turn. And the collaboration work that's happened by the county and all three towns to create this centralized emergency housing assistance program has just been an incredible resource. Prevented over 1,200 evictions and just been just an amazing source. Really pushed out a lot of money, for over $4 million, in the last year to keep folks in their housing. So just incredible. Yes, for SORAD. Also really incredible collaboration with the Carrboro Police Department. So the police department has a direct line to the SORAD program phone and can call it during their working hours. They do work sort of longer hours. So they're on duty on the street outreach team between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturday. So it is sort of expanded from just like 9 to 5. And that's, really on purpose to try to be available at some of the times when those key, deflections from law enforcement can happen. So they have the direct number. And in fact, we give out the direct number to businesses, to the members of the public. It's on our website. We have flyers and cards, and we're really encouraging anyone who is concerned, if they're seeing someone who they'd like somebody to go and check on them, or they see a campsite that they want to make sure that someone's aware of. Anyone can call that program phone. Let's see, I don't know if I can put it in the chat, or I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do, or just directly.
Yeah, technically you're not able to put it, allowed to put it in the chat, but you can send it to Kathy to get to us.
Okay, I will do that. But if anyone's got a pen handy, it's 919-886-3351. And really happy to get folks flyers, cards, anything like that with the SORAD information. But that law enforcement partnership with all of the jurisdictions is really, really key. And we're in process now to meet every single officer on the Carrboro PD, the SORAD, the 3 SORAD team members, and the program is shared between the housing department and the criminal justice resource department. So either Kate Finhagen, myself, or Emily Sutton will go with the team members and, to these briefings and make sure that there's just a face-to-face meeting and interaction with every single member of the police department. We've completed that with the Chapel Hill Police Department, and we will with the UNC Police Department, and all of the jurisdictions, the sheriffs and Hillsborough Police Department. We really want to make sure that everyone's knows everyone. And in thinking about continuation funding, we wanted to get the program up and running and use the CARES Act to do that. And we're in talks now with some of the talks that have also sprung up around looking at reimagining public safety and some of those funding conversations that are looking at other ways to spend funding that had gone, for policing and different activities. And street outreach is a very, a kind of commonly thought of in a lot of communities activity for some of that type of work. So we've been talking with the Chapel Hill Council and or committee, task force, something, lots of different groups looking at these things. So in those conversations, and those are going on right now. And yeah, we're really excited.
Incredibly important. Thanks so much, Corey.
Thank you, Damon. Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you, Corey. I think you've all done amazing work this year, and I hope you know how much the community appreciates it. And since you don't have enough work to do, I know that, as you know, within the next couple of years, we're going to be opening a new library. And libraries very often are natural places for people who are unhoused to go. And my hope, and I'm sure my colleagues share this with me, is that when people who are unhoused are using the library or hanging out in the library, that they're not viewed as a problem. And I think part of that depends on, or it all depends on planning ahead of time and having connections and services and education to the staff that will make the library truly welcoming to everybody and have everybody feel safe and welcome there. So I'm hoping that as we get closer to opening the library, that we can depend on you to work with us in helping to develop services or programs or access that will that will make unhoused guests in the library a part of the community rather than a problem. So I think we'll be looking to you for that, particularly since you don't have enough to do as it is. So thank you.
I'm happy to say we have a great partnership with Orange County Library staff, Erin Sapienza, Libby Huff. They're just amazing partners. They help us usually every year during our normal years with the point in time count. And they definitely have it as a point of pride that the Orange County Library is a place for everyone. And they've made time for me to come and present to their staff, like a 2-hour-long presentation, and we'll look to continue with that. And I'm so excited about the new library myself.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. Thanks for that. Are there any other comments? And if not, I can take a motion to accept the report. Barbara, I saw your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, and I can also do the motion if you want me to, but I just wanted to just thank Corey for her leadership with the partnership, and just doing the work, especially her openness and her willingness to do this very important racial equity work that we're going through right now, and just embracing that and realizing the importance of it to the organization. So I applaud her for that, and just in general, thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow at 6:00.
I'll
Okay, so motion by Barbara. I think I saw Susan's hand up. I will say second by Susan. Susan, do you have another comment to make?
I had a really quick follow-up question. I just
Okay.
wanted to follow up on what Sammy said. Corey, on the stipend, do all of your advisory board members, task force members, does everybody get the same amount for the stipend, and what is that amount?
Well, I think that's what we were looking towards. Currently, we were looking at an hourly amount and having that set at the living wage. But I think we're really, if there's another best practice, we're really open to what that would be. But that's the current way it's set.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that, Corey. All right, so we have a motion to accept this this wonderful presentation, and a second by Susan. All in favor, say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Me, aye. Barbara?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
Awesome. All right, great. Thanks. Thanks again, Corey, for being with us this evening. All right, Ms. Manager, next item.
Sorry, sticky fingers. Got a little presentation to show for the next item for you all. So I'll pull that up. So my slides are much plainer than the two previous presentations, and I hope that will be okay with you. But next year, who knows? I'm definitely inspired. I might have to explore the approaches they're using. Very, very fun, very engaging. So since 2003, the town, the county, the school board, the towns, the county and the school boards have worked together to help plan for capital needs. And by monitoring the current student population, student enrollment, and projecting population into the future on a 10-year rolling timeline. And so every year, those numbers are combined into a report. That report goes through a certification process. This plays into the CIP for the county. And of course, it has been part of the approval of developments as well through the certificates of adequate public facilities. The current report is summarized here, and the school district, Chapel Hill Carrboro City School District, does not exceed the adopted levels of service that are established in the SAPFO at present. The projections don't show a need for new additional capacity at any of the school levels within the 10-year planning period. And the work to, as some of you have seen, the work to renovate and expand existing facilities continues, although the high school has, of course, been opened and being occupied, Chapel Hill High School with its renovations. Future growth rates are showing decreasing rates of growth at all three grade levels. And however, the changes in average classroom sizes are expected to create some capacity issues in 2024 to 2025. And the evaluation of that and the exploration of options is still underway between the school boards and the Board of County Commissioners. So currently, there was a reduction in the population of students in the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools in the current year, 470 student reduction. I'm sorry, a 605 student reduction. So the levels of service have come down a little bit lower than they were previously as a result of that. There were a number of conditions that were sort of added into the report this year just to deal with some of the things we've been hearing about tonight and facing for the past little over a year, and principally COVID-19 impacts. The decrease in the student membership is predominantly attributed to COVID-19, with students being withdrawn from school to enroll in private schools or to be homeschooled. These impacts are believed to be temporary, and since the numbers were impacting the 10-year projections in the standard structure that's used for this analysis, the Orange County staff did several hypotheticals based on past patterns of data and trends for populations and included those in the report this year. There were no, based on those hypotheticals, there were no capacity needs identified again within the 10-year projection period. But the classroom size changes item is still a potential impact. And it is, as I said, a conversation that's ongoing. The pre-K enrollment topic has been brought up in previous years. As we are probably familiar, the School Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance does not include pre-K enrollment, but the numbers of students and impacts are being monitored. And I think I totaled, I think there's 200 and some students, 208 students are identified in the current year in pre-K within the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. There has been some increase in proposed residential neighborhoods throughout the county, and particularly one neighborhood in Chapel Hill. These neighborhoods, proposed neighborhoods, before they get into the permitting process, are not included in SAPFO, but they are something that, because they, as they come on board, we want to get just a little bit more of a look at them. We, staff working at this, primarily the Orange County staff, compile this information and monitor those growth and potential demand issues in relation to student membership rates. Charter school membership is also something that is not specifically called out from a level of service perspective in the SAPFO, but monitoring the student enrollment is important, since if a currently operating school were to close, a spike in the otherwise public school population would likely occur, and it might affect the time frame for capacity needs. There are currently 166 students budgeted for charter schools in Orange County. And then as school renovation and expansion continues, and this is a strategy in Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools to add capacity within the schools, that capacity, for reference, is added into the projection models in stages once the funding has been identified for those improvements. The action in front of you tonight is to accept the report. If you choose to do that, the commissioners have requested that the comments be provided to them by April 16th. And if you want to make any other comments or questions, to include those in the resolution would be great this evening. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Trish. Anyone have any comments? Sammy?
Yeah, thank you, Trish, for the presentation. I'm trying to understand the projections in terms of the accounting of this classroom size question. And it seems like that is going to happen. And my question is, why are we using the old numbers for the years this is going to change, if the whole point of this exercise is to plan ahead of time?
I think that the strategy for specifically responding to the projections has not been identified yet. So we're using the current number, but we are seeing that, I mean, in doing the projections, we can see that there would be an impact in the year I think it's at the elementary school level, in the year 20, well, that affects the elementary school level, excuse me, at the 2020, in the school year 2024-25. So I can dig more deeply into that question for you, but I know it's been an ongoing conversation for there were meetings in 2019 as well as a conversation I think early last year as well.
So, thanks, Trish. So I mean, one of the comments I would like us to offer is a concern of that ratio not being included in the calculations in advance, because the further out we have those projections, the better we're able to plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. Tricia, is that clear what Sammy was asking to have as a comment? Okay. Yes. Other council members, any other comments by anyone else? And if not, if someone would like to move the resolution with Sammy's comment. Barbara, is that a motion? Barbara made the motion. Randy says second. If there's no further conversation, then all in favor say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Me? Aye. Barbara?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jackie?
I'm eating, so I've got my camera off. Aye.
Okay, Sammy.
Aye.
And then I think me. Did I get everyone? I think Damon, sorry. I was caught off by the eating comment. Okay, all right, very good. So we're finished with that item. Thank you, Trish. All right, so we're on to our last item then.
And we still have a closed session, Mayor Lavelle?
We do have a closed session, yes. And Jackie, I think you had one brief comment you wanted to make after this. So let's go ahead and go to our last item here on the regular agenda, Trish.
Sorry, I moved away from the agenda cover sheet in my packet here. Let's see, the last item on the agenda is a discussion of your advisory board guidelines, I believe, right?
Yes, it is. And
can't move my document.
I'm actually having to go to I'm having trouble opening up on the website. So I'm going to something different here. But so this is our discussion of possible amendments to the town policy about advisory boards. And so the reason that we scheduled this item for discussion is because Sam had an item, he wanted to discuss this a little bit. We talked about the ethnicity angle, I think, last week. And so perhaps we should formally adopt that tonight, although I thought we already did. And then Sammy, I think you wanted to talk a little further about an edit to the guidelines. So if you want to take it away, go ahead.
Sure, thank you, and thanks to the council for entertaining this question. And I think we did agree that including a request of like what is ethnicity is something we're all in agreement of. What I wanted to also look at is in the process of bringing forth applications that we include ethnicity as one of the goals and diversity that we have as a town. And that in that process, Kathy include ethnicity as one of those triggers for whether to bring forward or not the application pool. So that's the main thing I'm requesting tonight in terms of edits. Beyond that, I think Susan will speak to this question of stipends, and I'm also interested in that, as I believe that there is a socioeconomic dimension to what it means to diversify our advisory board representation. And in the same way that we match proportion of what Carrboro population is, race and ethnicity, to what the advisory boards as a guide for how we're doing, I think there's also an opportunity to match with socioeconomic status that exists on the board. How we get there may be trickier, as it's taboo to ask like income data, but perhaps providing a stipend that is connected to whatever metric we want, 50% below area median income, or poverty level, which is 15% in Carrboro. That would be 15 applicants times whatever number we want for stipends, and roughly around $10,000. Anyway, so that's a separate conversation. But the first point is this inclusion of ethnicity in the process for the applicant pool.
Okay, all right, thanks, Sammy. And so before I go to other board members for comments, I think I'd like to hear if Susan has anything additional she wants to say about the stipends other than what we all got on email. And that way, when I call on y'all, you can each speak to both of these questions, the question about ethnicity and then the question about whether we want to ask David to pursue some different models about stipends to present to us, I think, during our budget talks. Susan, do you have anything you want to say in addition to what Sammy said?
Yes, two very quick comments. One is, Sammy, when I was thinking of a stipend, I wasn't thinking so much of targeting it to people's income level, because I would rather, what I was thinking more is just everybody is offered a stipend, and people could certainly waive the stipend if they are so inclined. And the other thing I just wanted to say is when I'm thinking of a stipend, I was thinking of it, I think we're doing a really good job getting a larger pool of applicants and a more diverse pool of applicants, but we can still do better. And so one way of doing better is to try to lower these barriers, whether it's a barrier because of daycare or transportation. So I'm thinking of a stipend as helping us, grow our applicant pool by providing, some kind of stipend for people to be reimbursed for these kinds of expenses. Another option, of course, is that the town provides daycare as needed at an advisory board meeting or what have you. But I do think there's a certain simplicity to a stipend. And I did like the idea that Corey mentioned, is having a stipend that would be based on the living wage, the hourly living wage, which is $15.40 an hour. So I just wanted to throw that out as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan. All right, let's go. So let's get some feedback from council members. I saw Barbara and then Jackie.
Woo. Let me just start by saying that. Here we are. So I do remember that, at least I think I do, that this council, and I don't have a problem with the ethnicity question. Catherine Durando, could I get you to show where that change that Councilmember Slade is talking about and how that would impact how you bring forth the advisory board applications?
You're talking about the attachment, his
Yeah, because it would be the email.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up.
Thanks.
And to just, I really can't answer the second question because until you all have, I guess, given me guidance on how you want me to consider any amendment, I won't know how that would affect me bringing them to you. So that's kind of the no answer really, but until y'all say, here's this data, whenever you see, however you wanted to guide me is, so I can't answer it all because I don't have enough information yet.
Well, hopefully you will by the end of this conversation. Yep.
Sorry,
Do you
the
have
document,
it, Kathy?
the document I have pulled up is showing.
I can pull it up if you want.
Giving me that would be great. It's because it's telling me out of data.
Can y'all see that? Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good, Lydia.
Yeah,
and
there you go. Thank you.
I'm looking at the sentence. It says the town council has a goal of promoting racial, which that was the only thing that was there. And so now we're saying promoting racial and ethnic diversity on advisory boards. So it will expand it to include ethnicity. And let's see, she'll notify the town clerk of the lack of racial or ethnic diverse applicants. So I think that is where I have the question, racial or ethnic applicants. So how would that work for you as far as, if it's worded that way, how would that work for you as far as how you might bring applicants forward, depending on what we decide tonight? This is
hypothetical. So I think, so you know how I send emails with the breakdowns right now of here are the applicants and the demographic information that they've provided. I would just continue that. Mm-hmm. And, what I'm thinking about is comparing applicants to current appointed. So current members to applicants. And are the applicants diversifying that board racially? That's how I'm looking at it now, specifically Black and African American, because that's our goal. But then if we add an ethnicity, then it would be hard at first because we wouldn't have all that information on our current advisory boards. But as we build and, next year, and on down the road, we could have more data to compare existing to applicants. So it may not be, we don't really have the data right now to make, a direct comparison.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I just want to say that if we have racial and ethnic diversity, I think we'll get this other diversity that's being discussed around income and socioeconomic status. I'm not comfortable drilling down too far, as far as what we're asking community members that are applying for our advisory boards and commissions, because I think the racial and ethnic diversity will give us, income diversity, socioeconomic status diversity, geographic diversity. I mean, I've kind of already seen that in some of our recent appointments. So I'm hesitant about drilling down too much farther than that. And can I get either, I'm just going to talk about everything while I have the floor. So can I get the pie charts, the ones that Sammy has been forwarding and that Kathy's been sharing? Can somebody?
Yeah, do you have that one in front of you, Kathy?
Is that one that was sent recently?
Yeah, Sammy sent it to us, I think, last night. Either last, I've got it over here. If I just need to send it over to this computer here, and then I can show it. Unless you get to it first.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, I see it right here. I can pull this up.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you. So when I look at this information, I use it as a reference and not a guide. And the reason why is diversity is an ongoing process. I don't have a stopgap. And I would hope that this council doesn't have one either. Even if that means the board turns completely African American, completely Latinx, completely Asian American, it doesn't matter. Diversity is an ongoing process. And what I think we're forgetting is the number of years that our advisory boards and commissions went with little to no diversity. So let's not use this as a stopgap. For example, saying, so we have 12% for African Americans for US Census 2019, and we're showing 19% for our advisory board composition. So I look at that as a reference and not a guide, because like I said, diversity is ongoing. And I think it's just something that we're always, something that we always should be working on. So that's what this pie chart means to me. I don't know what it means to others. So I wanted to say that really quickly. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
As far as the stipend, I'm more comfortable with probably non-monetary. I think, we'll have to spend time establishing a process, regardless whether we move forward with money or a non-monetary way of compensating community members. Plus, we don't really know what people's barriers are. Have we collected any data or any information? As far as what people would say would make it easier. We don't know that it's money. How do we know? Who are we to say, that the Black community, they want money, or the Latinx or the Asian American? We have no idea, until we ask and collect that kind of information. So I'm hesitant to just jump ahead and just say, oh yeah, stipend, money, when the need may actually be something other than money. So, I mean, that's all I want to say. I like our recruitment policy for our advisory board. I like the simplicity of it. And I just, like I said, I just really don't want us to drill down too far, as far as like requesting information and getting too specific. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Barbara. Jackie.
Thank you. I really appreciate the spirit of this conversation and what we're trying to accomplish. I too am really uncomfortable asking people income. I wouldn't want to be asked that to see if I qualified for something, and I don't think other people would either. I think it can be demeaning and can otherize people. I too, along with Barb, I want to remove barriers to being on advisory boards. And to me, those barriers, when I think of it, are don't have time to get dinner. But why don't we have dinners for all of our advisory boards? Like, why don't we have pizza or sandwiches for advisory boards so that that's not a barrier? Transportation, buses don't run all the time at night, or maybe it takes too long to get the bus to go to the meeting, or you have trouble with transportation. The town owns vans, and we could easily hire drivers to go around and pick people up and take them home from wherever they are. Childcare could be a barrier. It's problematic, I've heard, for us to provide childcare on site because of legal considerations when you're taking care of young children. That can get complicated. So maybe we could come up with childcare vouchers that would be offered to everybody. Does anybody need a childcare voucher? Here's a childcare voucher. Another barrier sometimes is communication. Well, we could try and provide people who have trouble with communication with like Wi-Fi hotspots in their houses, or even lend people iPads for while they're serving on a commission. So I think there are many ways that if we put our heads to it, other than money, other than direct payment, that we could use for all of our advisory board members to make service easier. I know there are some people, there are a couple women who lived in elder housing around here, who were interested in being on advisory boards. They weren't necessarily poor, but transportation was an issue because they didn't drive and the buses didn't run right. So I think let's sit down and put our heads together and consider what the barriers are and work at overcoming those barriers, which will involve money and could frankly end up costing us more money than if we were paying low-income people stipends. But I think it could serve our whole community and come up with things. I'm a little leery of the word ethnicity on an application, because ethnicity means different things to different people. If I was filling out an application and it asked me my ethnicity, I would try and come up with some. Some people under ethnicity could put Greek, or Italian or Jewish. So I think the word isn't well enough defined, and I'm not sure what our results would. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying I think it's not. It doesn't mean to everybody what we think it means. So we need to be cautious with that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. Damon and then Randy.
Thanks, Lydia. I agree with a lot of what's been said already, so I won't be as long-winded as I might normally have been. And speaking to Jackie's point, like I said last week, I do agree with us, and thanks, Sammy, for raising this again, asking the ethnicity question. In my mind, what that meant was similar to the way that other boards do it and other bodies do it, is what you're asking is not a general ethnicity, but asking, are you Hispanic or Latino, or are you not Hispanic or Latino? We want specifically to know if someone identifies as Hispanic or Latino, not just general ethnicity. That I think was the interest expressed by Sammy, if I'm understanding correctly, and that is certainly the way that HUD and other bodies and other jurisdictions ask about that question. I'm really attracted to the idea of finding ways to lower barriers, as Jackie, I think, so well put it, and Barbara also expressed it with respect to advisory board participation. I think on the racial and ethnic diversity side of things, we we're really kind of seeing the dividends come from the changes that have been made over the last couple of years in the policy and the way that applicants are being recruited. And specifically, something that Barbara and I have talked about a lot, is the work that individual council members are going out and doing to pull people in and say, hey, there's this opportunity, you need to come apply for this. I think that's an incredibly important piece of this effort over and beyond the what's in the policy around increasing diversity around race and ethnicity. I think I share some of the same kind of hesitations around the compensation issue as I think Barbara and Jackie have expressed, partly because, again, as they said, like, I want to know what A, the goal is, and B, what's the challenge what's the barrier you're trying to lower by doing whatever strategy we decide makes sense, right? So I guess rather than kind of get into the long-winded conversation about that, maybe what I would be interested in is, and I don't know if there's a council member or two who want to kind of do this, or maybe staff look into it or something, but I would like to see some models from around the state, around the country, of communities who have done some version of this around whether it's stipends or some other strategy for removing the barriers that people actually have, right? Not just what we guess they have. I think Barbara sort of said before, right? Like, we're just sort of assuming what people's barriers are. What are the actual barriers we're trying to remove for people? And then tailor our approach to that, rather than just saying, well, here's what we're going to do. I guess I'd just like to see some models from what other communities are doing. And I know that there was an email or two that went around about that, but I'd like to dig into just some examples. We're not reinventing the wheel here, right? We're not the first community that ever talked about compensating advisory board members. So I'd like to learn what other communities are doing. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Damon. Let's see, Randy.
All right, I appreciate all the comments and the points that have been made. I think the question of income is something that folks may get offended by, and I really just, people are very guarded about income, and so I would not be comfortable with that. I wouldn't mind more conversation regarding ethnicity, because on one hand, I can see that it is helpful. On the other hand, I did notice with some of the questions that folks had answered regarding race, they didn't want to answer. And I know that if you put in ethnicity, it would even red flag more the sense of that we're thinking of things in terms of otherness, as Jackie pointed out, and that's a real thing. As somebody who I never know what to put in terms of race and ethnicity. I mean, race is not that hard for me to figure out, but when I get to ethnicity, then I have this dilemma, So the question to me about ethnicity is, it's too vague, and it is, if we had a disclaimer that it was based on HUD, I think people would get red flagged about that we're trying to use the information in some way that is related to things that they may have concerns about. So I think it's a dangerous place for us to go, and I don't know that this is the moment that I would go there. So I would be very cautious about seeking to define our applicants even more. I think Barbara put it well to say, it's, I don't know how far we want to drill down. On the question of stipends, I've been there before when I was with the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools, and we dealt with this issue. Well, I don't know that we dealt with it. We certainly found ways to address it. I worked with Clementine Self was at Glenwood School. She did a phenomenal job of
getting parents engaged and getting parents not only to conferences, but also to PTA meetings. Liz Carter worked on this. Some of the things that we found in our work then was that the issue of removing the obstacles really did not have to do with funding people, or in some way always looking to reimburse them or creating a stipend. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if somebody, if a parent of a child is not able to make parent conference because they are a nurse that goes to work at 3 p.m. and has their shift through 4 a.m, whatever it is, the issue of stipend is irrelevant. So some of the things that we started to look at, we looked at all, and this is something we've talked about, but I don't know how much we've enacted. So I'm going to run down the list, some of which has been already said, but I'm going to just repeat it because I've been talking to some folks on council about it and kind of getting feedback. But alternating meeting times, looking at transportation and maybe transportation vouchers, Uber. And this is if we go from virtual back to face-to-face. Childcare. We've got a lot of folks in Carrboro who run childcare. We could be giving them the business. We could be creating vouchers for businesses that are right here in Carrboro. Dinners. Lydia and I know when we have swag meetings, and we did that in the school district. We had, before PTA meetings, we had dinners, and parents were encouraged to pick up boxes and take food home to family. So that's definitely, that's an easy obstacle to address. Paying for, vouchers for any gasoline or whatever kind of need folks would have. That's also with transportation. Locations. We've talked about some of the advisory board meetings not being held at town hall, to hold it in various locations. I don't know if that's really followed through. I know with the council, it's a little tricky because of recordings, but for advisory boards, there could be more fluidity in where meetings are held. All right, let's get to some other things that are more services oriented. All advisory boards could be given, as Jackie said, a Wi-Fi hotspot, or be given access to town accounts for internet. All advisory board folks could get iPads that are leased to the people who are on the advisory board for the tenure of their time on the advisory board. That makes perfect sense to me because a lot of folks do not have that equipment. We could also be recognizing and providing all advisory board members with service coupons that uplift Carrboro businesses. We do recognition at the advisory board's recognition dinner, and some people get prizes. No, what I'm saying is we should be looking to make that part of our circulating local living economy dollars, and reinforcing our businesses in the same way. The same could be done with providing some of our community climate action, energy efficiency, whether it be LED bulbs or having weatherization assessments, or so things like that. I think we just need to be more creative. And in addition, we could be giving out backyard and kitchen composters. And what about bicycles? We keep talking about bicycles. My God, that's one of the simplest things in the world that we could be doing. We could be engaging with the recyclery or other businesses to have either bicycle leases or bicycle loans or bicycle purchases for folks who need transportation. So I think we need to be thinking out of the box and not thinking that the greenback dollar is going to answer the questions, especially when the questions about what the obstacles are not necessarily monetarily resolved. Okay, and I think finally, one of the things that's dearest to my heart is this concept of service. People volunteer to contribute to their community because they care about community and they care about service, how service makes them feel. When you pay somebody, that's a job. And so I'm going to hearken back to Martin Luther King and say, you know, everybody can be great, anybody can serve. That's what we believe in, and that's what we should stand for. And if there's obstacles, then we address what the immediate obstacle is. Putting money into people's hands from the community is not a way of honoring what it means to be engaged on a civic level. And so I just find that even if at some later point we see a need to do otherwise, I think we absolutely need to exhaust what we can in terms of looking at, what true recognition of service and true recognition of support for service yields.
Okay, thanks, Randy. Let me make a few comments. First of all, I think that this idea of the stipend, not based on any kind of not based on economic need or whatever, I think it's well intended. I mean, a lot of communities are kind of thinking of it, right? But as this conversation has evolved, I'm also seeing, I think, some really great ideas, ways of still addressing barriers or even giving, carrot and stick, if you will, to folks to stay on in service by way of, the food, the gas, the childcare vouchers, maybe like, Uber vouchers, whatever. I mean, I think that's really, really interesting. And it kind of, it's not a stipend, but it's a way to help, alleviate some of that financial hit. And it's a way also to, support some of our businesses, as folks have said. I really like a lot of those ideas. And now how do we find out what community members who would serve on boards except for this, how do we get information from them? Well, I don't know, Kathy, if we're up for that survey again this fall where we survey the entire community or not, but maybe we put some questions on there. What are barriers to serving on an advisory board? Why, if you haven't served on one, why haven't you? We can also collect other anecdotal evidence that we know that's a pretty good statistical means by which we've surveyed really well the last couple of years, and we can collect some data that way. Because the people who are serving are already serving. So how do we find out why people don't serve? So that's one thought, in addition to any other anecdotal way we might find. So I guess that's a long way of saying I really like a lot of these ideas of how we can make it, address what we think are the concerns, travel, food, childcare, whatever, gas, driving, no buses where I live or whatever. All right. As for the ethnicity, I think we really need to have that on the application form. and all we need to do is reproduce. I mean, this is on almost every single form that we fill out a lot of times about demographic data. It's right here from the census, y'all. And essentially, it's really so we can figure out, our Hispanic or our Latino or our community members who are of that ethnicity. It's really for that. And so, I mean, it's really turnkey of you ask about that, for the census, Hispanic origins are not races. Is this person of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? no or yes or whatever. And then what is this person's race? I mean, it's to only get at really that specific demographic information. If it's done really clearly, like it is on the census and like it is on anything else we fill out, like FAFSA or health forms or whatever, then it's really clear. And that's why it's written that way. So I kind of feel like we should have it on our forms. All right, I saw a few other people with some hands jumping up again. I know that Kathy is taking notes. I saw her nodding a few times. I think she's hearing a lot of our conversation. All right, let's go. Damon and then Sammy and then whoever else.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Lydia. I just want to confirm again that was my understanding of what we were talking about. Was we ask, what is your race? And we ask, are you Hispanic or Latino? Yes or no? That's it. Not opening up everything else, right? That's the interest here. And like you said, Lydia, you see that that's very common in survey questions and survey in all kinds of fields. So I appreciate that, and I support us doing that.
Great, thanks, Damon. Let's see, back to Sam. And then wait, Kathy, do you have a clarifying question before we go?
I do. After you talk and maybe get a little more nodding of the head, yes or no, on how that advisory board application should be amended, please do that in a motion, because last week it was just let's add ethnicity to it. So that's what's been out there since last week. So I just want to be very clear with, what I'm supposed to do. All right, thank you.
Got it. Yeah, great. Thank you. Let's go to Sammy.
Thanks, Kathy, and thanks for the feedback. Yeah, the ethnicity, I think, is definitely about identifying Latinx, Hispanic, since especially that's the ethnicity that is most represented in our community. But tonight's conversation also is about whether our process will include that. So I'd be fine with changing ethnic to Latinx / Hispanic. I recognize it is upon us to do that work and reaching out to the community members, but we also do have a process that is to prompt us to do that work. And I don't see why we would focus on Asian and Black members at the exclusion of Latinx community. And Kathy, if you share that pie chart, because Barbara raised what we see in it, what I see in it is Latinx is not being represented there. We're at 4% versus 8% of the community. I totally agree with Barbara that I don't see this as a cap or where we stop making diversity in our advisory boards, but there is an opportunity to take it as a cue for where we could do better. And for that reason, I think it's imperative for us to include in the process a prompt for us to hold off and do better in that regard. So I would change in reflecting y'all's comments on ethnicity, changing the ethnic word to Latinx / Hispanic.
Thank you, Sammy. But I mean, I was just looking at what's on the census and what's on most forms that I think most of us are used to filling out. So I guess if you want to come up with something else.
No, I'm in agreement. I think
we're all
that's
agreeing
what you're
here.
saying. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I thought I heard you saying to write down Latinx. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. How is it phrased there?
Well, it's basically two separate questions. One separate ethnicity question. And it says, is the person of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? No. And then, or yes, Mexican, yes, Puerto Rican, yes, Cuban, yes, something else. Okay. And then 7, what is the person's race? And so this is where you fill out race. It's just like two separate questions, but it's essentially going really to Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. Those two separate.
Okay. So I'm fine with how we decide to do that and when we request demographic information. But to reflect in our process, we would say Hispanic, Latino, using the census language instead of ethnic. In the wording, or maybe it's not clear what I'm referring to. If y'all look at attachment, the draft amendment, what I'm suggesting is that we replace ethnic with Latino / Hispanic.
Kathy, can you put
Lydia,
that up?
we can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm sending Kathy a picture of what I just took. So what you're saying, Sammy, is keeping the language I just said on the application in terms of checking those off, but you're talking about those guidelines, changing the wording on the guidelines. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, in that amendment, it's titled composition, and so in red it says and ethnic. And so what I'm suggesting is instead of the word ethnic, using Latino/Hispanic.
All right, and so does anyone need me to share that again, or we understand?
Yes, if you would put that up, because that was of concern.
All right, I'm gonna share it again, and I see it looks like Barbara has her hand up again. So this is, can y'all see it okay? I mean, are you able to see that? Okay. So instead of saying racial and ethnic, you would want it to say promoting racial and
Latino/Hispanic.
But that's not.
All right,
can't
stop. All
use
right,
diversity
let's stop.
with
Wait,
that.
hang on, Randy, hang on. So Sammy's clarified what he said. So Barbara has her hand up, raised up. Let's go to Barbara, and then anyone else that wants to comment on that. I see Jackie after Barbara. Go ahead.
So in reference to that, and it's not that I'm against it, I'm just trying to figure out what that would mean for Catherine, the town clerk, as we begin to receive applications and maybe have a lack of Latinx or Latina applicants. But say we have Asian or Black, is that going to create any type of confusion? I guess is a question for me, or is it going to cause Catherine to maybe hold applications or whatever? I'm just not sure how that would be. Catherine, you know what I mean? Council member?
And so we are, the council is being much more, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying all of it's diversity,
Yes.
Black, so.
I think you've been very intentional and made appointments in the past few months differently than the past 10 years that I've been with you all. And I think we're in a learning, we're learning this together. How does the town clerk provide applications? When is there enough, and I don't see it confusing it anymore from an administrative point.
Okay.
I can send it to you all and, you say yes or no. And I don't think it may get to a point where you have to have another conversation of, hey, if we don't have any applications that look like this, then don't bring them. So, right now it's very clear. If we have an all white applicant pool, I'm not bringing them. Would this confuse it a little bit on my end? Yeah, but I'm pretty easily confused. Depends on how much coffee I've had. I don't think it would if I hear the majority of the council say, don't bring it unless there are.
But that's not what it says further down, Kathy.
Yeah, I know. So yeah.
Yeah, hang on, Randy, because after you, we got Jackie.
So, that's.
Are you done talking, answering about Barbara, Kathy?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't been able to give a clear answer tonight just because it's such a new process. And
well, no. I mean, I think it's fair. I mean, it's fair. You're kind of saying the reality of it. Let's hear what Jackie has to say.
I agree with most of what Barbara's saying. I want to make sure that we remain inclusive. I wouldn't want to see people of Asian or Middle Eastern descent feeling like this didn't include them. So I just think we need to be really careful.
It seems to me if we add on any words at all, Sammy, it would be and ethnic. I mean, it wouldn't be because, you know, the racial is kind of broad, and ethnic would be kind of broad. I would either leave it the way it is or add on ethnic if we add on anything. I don't think I would say Hispanic or Latinx or whatever. It seems more specific than even racial, you know. But again, I think we all have an understanding of what the intent here is, which is to really try to build up our diversity, especially our Black diversity, but then diversity in general in terms of race and ethnicity. Damon?
Yeah, I think it makes sense for Kathy to include in the application a question asking whether the applicant is Hispanic or Latino. And as Sammy is requesting, to make sure that that's reflected here, that we are looking for promoting racial and ethnic diversity. I don't think it needs to get more, you know, specific than that here. And I think we know what we're doing here. We know what the point is, and adding the word ethnic is fine. And as we begin building up an applicant pool, as Kathy mentioned earlier, it'll take a while because we don't have all that data on current applicant and current board members. But as we continue using this process, we'll see it work. I think it's going to work for Kathy, I assume, the way that it's been working already, which is she sees what the applicant pool looks like. And if it's not diverse in the way that we've indicated here, she'll let us know. And she's been very good about sharing that information with us. I don't think we need to make it any more complicated than that. We just need to ask people whether they are Hispanic or Latino or not. And that's it.
Thank you, Damon. And I want to say something because I want us to wrap this up, because we've got Jackie wants to say something, then we have a closed session. But first of all, Barbara, is your hand still up from earlier? Is that from earlier, or is it?
No.
But let me go Barbara, then Randy, then Sammy.
Yeah. So what I want to be clear on is that we won't hold any seats for lack of a specific type of diversity. We're just taking all diversity, however it comes, just realizing that sometimes we may not get all. And I think that's really what my concern is. I mean, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Realize we'll take diversity however it comes, whether it's Latina, Asian, you know, Black, however it comes, but not holding any seats or anything like that if we don't get it all in a melting pot. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or even, you know, so I think that's what I've been trying to get clear on. I think Catherine, she was good on the administrative side, but that's the part I wanted to get clear on, that we'll take it however it comes, like we have been doing. So I just want to be clear about that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with that, Barbara. All right, let's go Randy and then Sammy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable if you leave it as ethnic diversity, but here's where I want the clarification. I want to know is, because we've had conversation going in two different ways now. I want to know if it means Hispanic or non-Hispanic. Is that something that's, you've referred to the census, is that something that will be in this composition list and on the form or not? That's the first question I have.
My intention, it would be that it would be. And
okay. All right, that's all I want to know. Okay, yeah. All right, now that's one. The second question I have is when it says, if there isn't a quorum, if there's lack of a quorum, and the clerk brings forth the applications regardless of the racial and ethnic diversity of the applicants, and requests that the town council make appointments. So that means if there aren't if there isn't a diverse applicant pool, we go on. We don't wait.
Well, and that was in there. That was in there already. And
I know. I'm
just to get a quorum, and it doesn't mean fill them all up. It means at least get one more, so we can have a quorum, so we can do business while we continue to recruit.
Exactly. All right. I just want to make sure that we're all clear. Now, this question is really for Kathy. So what happens? We get everything set up, and it's, we've got solid diversity on our boards. What is the mechanism when people start having their staggered cycles? Is there some kind of a staggered cycle point that has to be made here, because or that can come later, but when we start to cycle people in a staggered way, the boards may not end up with the diversity we intended. And I'm just putting that out there because I know that that kind of thing happens. And thank you.
You want me to address that?
Go ahead.
The reappointment of anyone past their second full term is up to town council. And one of the reasons that someone can be reappointed past the expiration of their second full term is racial diversity. So that's already allowed.
Excellent.
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you. Okay, so Barbara, your hand is up. Is that from earlier? Or is that another comment?
No, my hand is down now. Thank you, Lydia.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. All right. I think we're almost at the end of our conversation here. I see Susan and then Damon and then I'm so sorry. Sammy was first. Sammy was still on my list. So Sammy and then Susan and then Damon.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I'd offered the Latino Hispanic, because I thought it would be consistent, and that's what I thought people were saying they wanted. But I think whether it be ethnic or not, it sounds like everyone's wanting ethnic now. For that reason, sounds like this this draft right here is what we would want. So I would like to make the motion that we amend our advisory board guideline to have this language.
Okay. Motion by Sammy, second by Damon. All
Can I
right.
make a friendly amendment, Sammy, to that? Can I offer an amendment? Because Kathy asked for clarity around the question. Can I, in addition to what you've included with your motion, Sammy, that Kathy is also directed to include a question on the advisory board application inquiring whether an applicant is of Hispanic or Latino ethnicity? Yes or no?
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So motion by Sammy, second by Damon. Now, Susan, you had a comment.
My comment goes back to stipends because I wanted to close. I was hoping to try to close the loop on that, but I can wait until after this conversation.
All right. All right. So let's vote on this motion right now. All in favor, say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Me? Aye. Damon?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Tammy?
Aye.
And Barbara?
Aye.
Okay. So back to Susan now on the matter of how to proceed with the conversation around stipends or whatever.
And I'll be really quick because the evening has gotten long and it's just a question of, do we want to close a loop or not tonight?
Yeah.
I totally agree with what everybody is saying in terms of the, turning this into monetary compensation. I didn't mean for the spirit of the stipend to be like that. I get it about having vouchers, offering a voucher for daycare, a voucher for a meal, a voucher for transportation. The stipend was a way of not, it seems simpler in a way administratively. You're not turning in receipts and what have you. I get that, but I guess my question tonight is, do we want to at least ask David, town staff, to consider this whole idea of vouchers and even consider having a certain pool of money in the budget that could be used to help advisory board members pay for things like daycare or an Uber or a meal that they need to pick up because they didn't have time to eat at home. So that would be my question. If we don't want to get into this tonight, that is really fine with me.
Well, if you'd like to put that in the form of a motion to ask staff to explore several of the ideas that have been made tonight in terms of ways to compensate, not necessarily monetary compensation, but a lot of the ideas, some of the ideas that we suggested, which I know Kathy's been writing down, and maybe staff can either report back to us and or ask that David talk to each of us during our budget meetings about it and consider some way of including it in the budget this year.
If I sorry to interrupt,
go ahead,
there will
Kathy.
be, we've looked into it already, and that's what he will talk to you about in the budget. A form of stipend for transportation and child or adult care, because many people have aging family members that they're taking care of. And it's mirrored exactly to the town of Chapel Hill's policy. And I won't go into it anymore, but the motion, it sounded like, is something that we've already done. in preparation for next year's budget. So I think that we can move on from there and get more detailed, but I think you'll be interested in seeing it. And it sounds like we got pretty close.
Okay, well, okay, thank you, Kathy. Thank you for that. So Susan, it sounds to me like, why don't we wait and see what we're hearing from David about that in terms of the budget? And if one of us finds that it's not quite that, we can tell him and he can kind of work it through with us or something.
Lydia, that sounds great with me. And Sammy, does that sound good with you?
Yeah, I was going to second your motion, but it sounds that thanks to Kathy's information.
Me too.
we're
Thank
on
you,
it.
Kathy.
Thanks,
Right, Kathy, thanks for that update.
Thank you,
Damon,
Kathy.
your hand's up. Is that it with regard to this?
It was, but now it's just to ask a favor if whoever's sharing their screen could please stop.
Oh, is it me? Okay, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know because I have everyone blown up on another screen. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it always remind me because All right.
I had something just really quickly. So so this conversation in the budget conversations, that's not a done deal. I mean, I would think that it would be just talking about it within the individual budget meetings to see what council members are thinking. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I think David will talk to each of us like he usually does, and he'll see if there's a general consensus or if there's concern or whatever, and then he'll come back around to us and we'll talk about it at the budget meeting if we have a disagreement about it. So, all right. So no more questions, Damon. That's your hand up from earlier. Is that? Okay, no questions. All right, so we're done with that item. And Jackie, you wanted to bring up something briefly about speeding.
Yeah, Damon and I got emails yesterday from let me pull it up very quickly from Luke Paul you all know him, Luke Paulson, who lives on Carroll, and he was saying that yesterday there was a car going well over 50 up Carroll, and that they've been talking about this to us since 17 about the cars speeding up and down, and particularly during the pandemic. A lot of people are out walking and they're walking the dogs and they're walking the kids. And we've been saying to them since then, we're going to do something, we're going to do something. What they're asking for right now, while we're working through these other issues with traffic control in Carroll, is like temporary speed bumps. And I know this came up last week, but I wanted to ask, how quickly can we get this done? Particularly with summer coming and kids will be leaving their home school and going out on their street more often than not, and people walking dogs. And then also, as there is construction going on where the post office is, and we really, this is a neighborhood under a lot of pressure. And I think we need to do what we can to protect it. So how quickly could we get temporary speed bumps in there? It's been studied to death. I don't think we need another study.
Right. So our acting manager is also our planning director. And so Trish can give us her response to this question.
Well, we have actually in the most recent traffic and parking committee meeting have been looking at some temporary measures that we could try to map out on Carroll Street. And there's a little bit of field work with members of and some vehicles from the fire department that are involved in that. I'd say I can't answer your question right this minute, but I can certainly try and find out for you within the week that we can give you an update.
That would be great.
We are. Could you please, because I mean we've done traffic study after traffic study in that neighborhood, and I think people are needing some action.
Thank you. Thanks, Trish. So get some information back to us in the near future, very near future.
I might just share with you, I don't know if you heard that the specific vehicle that was reported as speeding did turn out to be someone who had an emergency. And that particular vehicle that was reported, traveling very, very fast and turning corners and not stopping at stop signs was someone taking someone to the hospital. So
yeah, that sounds really fast.
That sounds bad. Yeah.
50 miles an hour on Carroll Street sounds desperate, really. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Motion to go to closed session by Damon.
Yes, for a matter of attorney-client privilege.
Second by Susan. All in favor say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Me, aye. Jackie,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Tammy,
Aye.
Damon.
Aye.
Okay, all right. So Kathy,